100 Days in a Meteorite Apocalypse with Ad Astra. This once peaceful, beautiful Minecraft world will soon be completely destroyed. And no, this time it's not because your little brother got a hold of your Minecraft account. There is a massive K2 level extinction-threatening asteroid careening towards Earth, throwing thousands of smaller meteorites ahead of it. Our only option at this time is to use Ad Astra to make a powerful rocket that can land on the surface of the asteroid, then use Nuclearcraft to build our own plutonium thermonuclear warhead to try to stop the end of the world. Along the way, we'll be making smaller rockets to explore the solar system, collecting all the resources that we need to make our bomb. Then, we need to try to figure out the new 1.20 update to Nuclearcraft, and this might be more dangerous than any of the falling rocks. Speaking of falling rocks, this whole time, we will be hit by bigger and bigger meteorite showers that threaten to blow up our base, and us. But, out here, in this lavender field, I couldn't be further from that nightmare. And I turn around to see the most gorgeous sight you've ever seen, other than my own reflection in the mirror, of course. It's this massive, multi-biomed mountain. And at the foot of this beast, there's a huge bay that falls into this huge ravine. I mean, honestly, this is kind of amazing. This spawn point right here might be one of my, top all time. I love this world. And so, of course, like the little gremlin that I am, I immediately start running up to the mountain. Not a single thought going on in this head. I only stop to get a little bit of spruce. Yeah, that's right. This mountain also has spruce trees. It has massive ice glaciers running down the side. It's kind of perfect. You might not believe me, I swear though, I didn't steal this seed. Just for once, Captain actually kind of got lucky here. Well, at least at the start. As I get up to the peak, I look all over my beautiful domain. Everything that the light touches, Simba. Though to be honest, as awesome as all of these landscapes are, I still really think that the area that we spawned in is kind of still the best spot. But, of course, Captain's luck can't even last one day. I mean, come on guys. You literally clicked on this video. You know what's about to happen. I hear what sounds like far off explosions in the distance. I look up and I see this. Yeah, I'm no weatherman or anything, but that doesn't look good. The sky is shredded by dozens of what look like massive burning balls of fire. And that's when the thought strikes me. What if one of these comes too close? Whoops. Maybe the phrase strikes me was a bad choice of words. Just at that second, I have to do an action movie dive and try to get out of the way as one of the meteors slams right into the tree where I was standing. All of a sudden, this went from tragically watching all the world around me burn to kind of terrifying for me. After all, if I get hit by one of these, this whole world gets deleted. I mean, look at that. Look at that one. It just blasted a huge hole all throughout the lavender field. And it's even making a crazy red shockwave that's covering the whole thing. Fortunately, I can't focus on that for too long. I have to keep on looking up to make sure that one of these doesn't come crashing down right on the mountaintop again. Finally, I get a grip. I'm not frozen in place with fear. I can feel my feet under me again, and I try to think of a better plan than just standing up here and waiting to die. It's a good thing too, because another meteor just struck the mountaintop where I was. I find this small but extremely useful little overhang, and I try to hide in here. While I'm trying to figure out my next plan, I crafted my first crafting table and wooden pick. Even though the sky is literally falling all around me, I craft up my first stone pick, and I do get a little bit of good news. It looks like the meteors have slowed down. Now it kind of looks like they're only falling one at a time, so I have a chance to get out of here. And even more good news. This mountain does have a lot of iron and osmium, a mechanism ore that's really going to help us with our survival. And speaking of survival, I think we're going to be hiding out the night in this little cave underneath the waterfall. I don't need any more creeper explosions on top of the meteors. As I craft up my first furnaces to cook up all our iron, I finally get my very first chance here to take a breath and think, at least for a little bit. Now, I basically have two options. I can try to hide from the real big impact that will be hitting us in 99 days, or I can use my engineering brain to figure out how to stop the meteor from hitting Earth at all. In the meantime, I craft up an osmium pick, which is almost as good as diamond. I told you it would help us. And I grab some emeralds. But I don't want to get too greedy. I definitely want to stay in the cave until morning. Now it's day 2. And as the sun is rising, I poke my head out to see what's left of this world. Halfway down the mountain, I already see our first crater. And inside of it, I see what's called a sky rock. So of course, I start to break it open with no care for my own safety. And this one is, well, this one's just a rock. Yeah, not too exciting. But this crater here does have some gold ore in it. So maybe there is some good loot coming out of these craters. I am not sure that having your entire Minecraft world being constantly bombed by meteors is worth a few gold nuggets, but at least I can try to take advantage of a bad situation, kinda. After getting some iron nuggets, I see our first real meteor. This thing is about 19 blocks, and the loot is a little bit better too. It does poop out some iron and some emeralds. Still not really sure that this loot is worth all the trouble, but there were some bigger meteors. Maybe those have better loot. Let's not give up just yet. Speaking of, I see this one falling right to Earth right now. I keep on chasing it as it falls through the trees and crashes down just ahead of me. Okay, by the way, quick side note, how cool is this mod? It's called Skyfall Meteors. In my opinion, like, these falling meteor animations are so good. Still though, I can't say they make me feel too good. As I get closer, all of my fears are confirmed. There is fire everywhere, a pretty big radius too. And the impact itself has not only broken through dirt, but it's broken through stone this time. One of these that's big enough in the wrong place could really do some damage. I start to head back towards the lavender fields and find more and more bigger and bigger craters as I do. This one even has something called stardust in its center. Now, of course, this is very dangerous. There could be an alien contaminant here. This is some kind of compound that could be highly toxic or dangerous. No, I'm just kidding, you guys. Of course, we immediately throw all of it into our pockets. Captain do like shiny. The good news is I didn't get infected by some alien parasite. No, not yet. And as the sun starts to set, I head over to this small little peninsula here, right at the foot of the mountain. It's close to the ocean and the lavender field, and it looks like the perfect spot for us to get started. I start to cut down all the oak trees in just one hit because I am addicted to the falling trees mod now. Seriously, I can't imagine going back to vanilla and like cutting each piece of wood out by hand. And I start to get our chest so that we can clear out our inventory. Although, I definitely do have to keep in mind that this chest could be blown away any second by another impact. This has got me thinking that now our very first goal for this playthrough is that we should try to get some kind of protection from the sky. Now, of course, I could build an underground base, and I might have to if things get really crazy, but also my first thought is how is this going to work with rockets? I'm worried that we might accidentally have a rocket that gets stuck underground. So for right now, I'm staying on the surface and staying brave. Possibly a little bit dumb, but yes, we are building on the surface. Oh, and that reminds me, yes, we will absolutely be building a rocket. But don't get ahead of me here. First, I start my farm, and I even get to see a little surprise here. I get pretty excited when I find our first block of ancient debris inside of one of these meteorites. Oh, and yes, by the way, you don't have to write that comment. I know that it's called a meteorite if it in fact impacts Earth. But come on, we all know that like asteroids, meteors, they're all named weird anyway. You'll excuse me if I'm a little too panicked from all of these explosions happening around me to get all the names right. Speaking of, that explosion right at my doorstep, a little too close there, I start to look for how we can make steel in Ad Astra. Ad Astra, for all of you uninitiated space cadets, is an amazing, super clean space traveling mod. Now, I've definitely got a lot to say about it throughout this playthrough, but for right now, I'm just trying to make some steel, just so I can hopefully get a little protection from all of these falling rocks. Step 1 of Ad Astra is to make a coal generator, and as dangerous as it is to be out here farming at night, I don't really have any time to go to bed. I need to get some protection set up right now. Oh, and speaking of those meteorites, I see that night there's this massive rock here. I think that this is the one that caused the shockwave on day 1. I really want to dig into it, but I know that it's probably not safe at night, so I want to get a little more set up first. At the start of day 3, another near miss reminds me that I should probably stay focused. In fact, this one was big, a little too big. I can see that all these meteorites are quickly changing the world around me. They've melted some of the ice, causing a river to flow down our mountain. It's kind of cool, I'm not gonna lie, but I definitely wouldn't want this to happen to, my face. As I make our first machine, the coal generator, I know that I definitely need to make sure this is safe before I place it down. Now, I can't make steel, not until I place it and a few other expensive machines. So for right now, I'm gonna have to commit the worst crime I've ever done. I have to ruin this perfect landscape even worse than any meteorite ever could. I'm going to be setting out some oak fences, which will be holding up some slabs, and throw down a massive makeshift hangar to hide all of my machines. Now, first of all you little twerps in the comments, yes, I am well aware that this entire wooden roof is definitely going to burn up in just like one impact. That's why I cannot stress enough that this is temporary. To be honest, I really only expect this to absorb like maybe one hit before I can replace it with something much better. And also, once I actually see how hideous this whole thing looks, I mean, I gotta admit, I kind of want it destroyed right away. In my past, I've made some pretty bad rush builds, but this is even ugly by Captain standards. Actually, you know what? No. I changed my mind. This is perfect. See, it's so ugly that no self-respecting rock would ever come near this thing. If you think about it, it's the perfect deterrent. With this abomination over my base, I'm less likely to get hit by a meteor than you guys are of getting a girlfriend. And those odds are low. Nah, I'm just kidding, guys. I'm projecting because I'm so ashamed of this new base of mine. I'm sure one day you'll all find love, just like I'm sure one day I'll get smashed right in the face by an asteroid. But not that asteroid, and not today. So for now, we push on. Right about here, I am a little torn on where I should put my farm. For right now, I think I want to start outside in the sun so that all of our crops will grow faster. But I do want to put some of the farmland under the cover so that we don't lose all of our food supply with one big hit. Or at least that's what I was trying to think about. Sorry, I'm kind of distracted here by just how ugly this thing is. Here, you know what? I'll put out some spruce trees. Now at least there's something I made that's a little bit pretty, right? The good news is that with this new cover, we can now set down our coal generator. We cook up some coal and we start making some power. The big downside of this is that we have to use a lot of coal to make power here. But I also need the coal to make steel as well. And we're gonna need a lot of steel because the tier 1 rocket in Ad Astra is made out of pure steel. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist here. I'm not sure how blocks of steel could be a good building material to make a rocket go up in the air, but you know what? Never mind about that. I'm too busy spending the night getting even more seeds so that we can try to expand our farm. The captain is always a farmer boy at heart, you guys already know, but I'll try to keep the farming to a minimum in this video since my last video was just purely 100% about farming. No harvest craft or farmer's delight this time, fellas. However, I do decide to make one little treat. I use that stardust we found and I cook up a stardust cookie. A disclaimer really quick here, do not eat strange rocks that fall from the sky. But there's something weird just pulling me towards eating this, so I give it a try. I take a bite and immediately feel nauseous and weirdly get transported to daytime. I start to see a strange vision of me on an alien world. It's the asteroid that's headed for Earth right now. And I see that I have to choose. Am I going to sacrifice myself to destroy this giant rock, save the world? Or maybe I can save myself, but... Okay, that was a weird experience there. You know what, kids? Don't do edibles. After eating that bad batch of space weed, I wake up on day 5 in the gutter, just like a normal Monday morning. And now I start to head down into the ravine that is right next to my base. Just like any good Minecraft player, I see a little bit of water about 100 blocks away, so I jump. Good news is I find a ton of iron. We're definitely going to need this to make all of our steel. But also, we find some redstone, osmium, and our first diamonds too. We even get 3, which is perfect, of course. Grab some lapis, and then we fight these zombies, and from one of them, we get some carrots. Finally, we get back home that night, just as we start to run out of food. Just like a true science nerd, food can wait until we get our next machine, which is a compressor. You're going to need this in order to make plates, which are essential for basically every machine in Ad Astra. On top of this, we get our carrots planted and bone meal. We smash up our first 6 plates of iron, and with those, and a blast furnace, we can now make our electronic blast furnace. See guys, I told you we should have smashed. You guys wanted to pass. By the start of a rainy day 6, we have a new electric furnace set out next to our generator. We can start to throw in some iron and some coal to make our very first steel. But like I said, we are constantly running low on coal. It's a bit of a downside of using coal as a power source. Oh, also that whole global warming thing too. In fact, right now, I'm coal broke. I actually need to use slabs in my furnaces just to make the iron. Yeah, this is not looking good. However, just like the cheap date that I am, I'm feeling much better once I get my hands on something shiny. I craft up our first little bits of gear, and I gotta admit this is pretty good. Osmium gear is just a little step down from diamond, and we already have some on day 6. And that's great, don't get me wrong, but that sure doesn't fix our coal problem. I'm completely out. I can't even completely light up our farm with torches right now. So I think we all know what time it is. I craft up the last of my kit, and I get ready to head out to do some coal mining. But let's be real, the captain can't stay focused on important stuff. No, not for too long. Now I've been distracted as I get back to this mega meteor that we saw fall on day 1. I'm finally going to get a chance to see just how good the loot can be that falls from heaven. And sure enough, after a very long time mining these meteors, we finally get our first diamond. And soon, I even get to the Tootsie Roll center of this bad boy, and I see even more stardust. Not too bad. And what's even better is that now we're getting even more diamonds from this thing. I'll admit, it might take you forever to mine one of these rocks, almost as bad as obsidian, and it does take us all the way into day 7 by the time we actually finish. But it's definitely worth it, because in the end, we get 3 diamonds and some netherite scraps. Now, while that is very impressive, I'm glad we got this, I'm still not 100% sure it's worth, you know? Like, think about it. A rock that's this big that actually gets you diamonds would definitely wipe out all of your builds if it hits you. Your entire town would be wiped out if you put this on your server. But hey, you know what? That's up for you guys to decide. In my opinion, I'm still definitely going to want to stop these falling death rocks at all cost. So let's get Elon on the phone and get back to making our rocket. With our new diamond pick, we can finally start to mine the ancient debris that's been falling from the sky. And sadly, at this moment right here, I was just starting to learn about the new way to make netherite gear in 1.20. I've never tried to make it since the newest update, although I have heard from a few people that people really hate it. It's not super popular, but maybe I'll get to find that out for myself just a little bit later. Oh, quick spoilers, I end up hating this. I hate the new way to make netherite gear so much. But for now, I am still naive and blissful, so I continue to get back to making my steel. We now have a total of 4 bars of steel, which sure isn't bad, but I'm already starting to plan for some new way that will not use so much coal, be way less painful. Of course, this means I have to find a new power source, something better, as soon as I can. For now, we just get back to smashing. With these iron plates, we can make some iron rods, and soon we can make a basic but super important machine, the NASA Workbench. This is the central machine that you need to build all of your rockets. Of course, until we get that coal and steel, we're still stuck here on this planet covered in fire and explosions. It's now the night of day 7, and I see another group of meteorites coming on down. Right on cue, guys. Some days, none of these things fall. Some days, a few fall. And then occasionally, you get this apocalyptic style event right here. And now I'm worried that this might actually happen every 7 days. Of course, my exposed farm immediately catches on fire. I have to run over here and try to put it out as fast as I can. But I can't spend too much time worried about all these asteroids. Remember, this big, goofy wooden structure might not hold back too many hits. If I'm not careful, we could get immediately sent back to day 1 if I'm not here putting out these fires and repairing everything that I can. See, I definitely want that steel to make the rocket, of course, but I actually have a much bigger plan in mind. For now, it's day 8 and we finally get a good amount of coal and iron into our blast furnace. But honestly, we still need a ton more. So I spent all day and well into the night grabbing iron and coal. But soon, we have more steel cooking, and we can even try to craft up our first few parts of our Tier 1 rocket. Starting with some copper, we use this to make a lightning rod, which is part of the rocket nose cone. We're just going to have to smash up some more steel. Oh, and speaking of smash, I throw some eggs into this crater and actually get super lucky because they hatch into 2 chickens right away. I honestly didn't plan for this, but I decided to take advantage of my good luck. I'm going to keep these chickens in this little hole because every good pilot does need a cockpit. You guys get it, right? They're chickens in a hole, so it's like a you know what, never mind. Back at my base, we're now starting to focus on building up an alternative power source that won't tax my coal quite as much. You guys know it. You guys love it. The heat generator from Mechanisms Generators. This little guy won't make us too much power, not even as much as the coal generator, but it will make it for free. Well, kind of free. We're going to have to get some lava. And then I see this, a little beehive right next to my base. And I start to wonder if any bumbly little friends will show up. But for right now, I keep my ADHD under control, and I keep on working on finding that lava. By setting down this tank right here, then grabbing some lava in a bucket, we can then throw that into the tank, which can hold 32,000 millibuckets, aka it's 32 buckets. Soon, we find this underground lake of lava, and with this, we'll be able to make a ton of passive power production that won't suck down my coal like your mother sucks down her love for you. She and I are very proud of you, by the way. You keep it up, kid. Meanwhile, I'll keep up looking for even more diamonds. Honestly here, I feel like I'm actually getting pretty good luck with my diamond finding in this playthrough. By the end of day 10, I've already got a good amount of diamonds. Or at least, I don't know, at least I think this is pretty good. Also, I do grab some ender pearls right here because I do think I'm going to need them for a machine in Nuclearcraft. Yeah, I know, you guys almost forgot. We're having a lot of Nuclearcraft coming up, but that'll be later. One thing that I'll definitely never forget is these 2 little cuties. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Lightyear and Aldrin. I love them more than anything in the world. And if you dare say anything bad about them in the comments, I will find your IP. I will come to your house, and I will kindly ask you to say you're sorry. I'll also make another 3 heat generators for a total of 4. Now, with all this lava we have, we should be able to make all 4 of these work, and we start to set them all out. Of course, the trick with these things is to separate as many sides of the generator with lava as you possibly can. That means putting lava underneath them, and on each side of the generator, they can share a lava source in between them, which is much more efficient and not so bulky. We use some of the deep slate that we've been just mining. We start to make our little lava igloos. We just have to make sure that as many sides of the generator are touching lava as possible. Also, I don't know if I've said this in my other videos, you can actually like waterlog your generators and place lava in the same block as the generator. Now it will cause some lava leakage out the front here, kind of starting to look like a Taco Bell night here, but this isn't anything we can't handle. One way you can clean up the big lava spills is by making cables and connecting them to the ports of our generators, drawing power out and into our new machines. Now, we can start to make steel with half the coal. Very nice. Finally, we can add just a little more lava right here in the very front and right on the top of all the generators. And this is great. Well, until an asteroid hits, I guess, and then spills lava all over my base. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. Okay, well, let's start off day 12 by praying that that doesn't happen and get started on our next Mechanisms machines. The classic metallurgic infuser, the next step in getting some good quality of life machines that will help us with our industry and our rocket production. Now, to be clear, you can totally make everything in Ad Astra purely with all the machines in Ad Astra. You don't need mechanisms. But for me, on the other hand, Mechanisms is entirely a mod designed to making your industry much faster and much more efficient. Plus, let's just be real. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have a problem. I am completely addicted to Mechanisms now, ever since you guys told me about it, which kind of makes it your fault, honestly. You know what, guys? That's okay. You guys go down in the comments and profess your undying sorrow that you got the captain addicted to yet another tech mod, and in the meantime, I'll get our next machine ready. Of course, to get any real use out of these 3 beautiful baby machines, we're going to need some more ores. So I head off to the mines once more. As I'm digging down here, I can't help but think, somehow this is ironic, right? Okay, like think about it. We're digging down underground to get the materials to go up into space, right? Is this just a weird connection that I have? Is my brain just weird? You know what, never mind. Let's just mindlessly collect some more osmium, coal, iron, and kill the zombie. By the way, this is not just me being crazy, right? Like, this dude is wearing steel armor, right? How dare he show up in my server with better kit than me? You can't do that. You know what? You can go style up on the boys in heaven now. Me, on the other hand, I'm staying here for another full day, collecting ores until I completely run out of food, and yikes, I kind of almost ran out of health there too. Good news is, fighting that metal zombie dropped a potato. Fighting metal zombies. Kind of sounds like a cool name for a rock band, right? Sorry, anyway, as much fun as I'm having here, I should probably eat and get my health back, since once again, another onslaught of meteorites is raining down. Sure enough, it's almost been another 7 days since the last one. This one's right on time. And I gotta admit, this time, there was a real close call right there. It didn't do any damage, but it was still enough to scare me straight. Now I'm going to start to get to work on a much better farm. I do not want to get stuck outside of our shield with no food or low health, because one of these asteroids could absolutely be a game ender. So I want to power grow up as many taters as I can. And to do that, I finally decide it's time to get some Nuclearcraft into our life. The Manufactory, still a top tier piece of machinery. And soon we'll have a working one in my lab. For now, I'm just going to keep it easy. I'm using it to get 6 times our bone meal, which I think technically means I'm sextupling it. Nice. Okay, sorry. I promise I am taking this seriously. In fact, things are about to get a whole lot more serious when I find this. It's a new type of glowing meteorite. It's called a pentathalmos cocoon. Now, I probably should have known better when I read that. Yeah, just like that, all of a sudden, we now have an alien infestation loose on my world. These little blue bugs, they scare me to death. And it's a good thing that I was really cautious here, because you absolutely do not want to get one of these things stuck on your face. I managed to get away for right now, and I get back to my base. But now I have to worry about these every single time I want to go out into the lavender fields. In fact, one of them followed me home right away, and it jumps right on my face. Now, I try to punch it off. I am struggling. I'm panicking here. I have no idea what to do. But then quickly, I get an idea, and I throw down some lava that I have in my bucket, and I manage to burn it off. Whew, somehow, that actually works. Of course, it almost burnt me up in the process. So yeah, what that means is I've just killed one of these guys, and I almost died doing it. And these things are going to be a huge pain in my butt. And there's still like 20 of them out there. So yeah, I'm totally having fun. So much fun. Yes, so much fun. Okay, all jokes aside, I actually am having some fun when I put my first little lead in the enricher. We managed to get 4 dust, which is basically 4 ingots, out of 3 raw lead. So it's 125% yield. Okay, I know that doesn't sound too amazing. Honestly, that does start to add up. What does feel pretty good is on day 15, we finally have that manufactory that I was talking about. Soon, we'll be getting the sextuple. Sextuple bone. Okay, I'll stop. We are serious. This is very serious professional scientist stuff right here, okay? Speaking of things getting serious, now we have enough resources to start to upgrade some of our machines. Using some infused alloy, we make some advanced computer chips, which we can use to upgrade the smelter to an advanced smelter. This can cook up 5 items at once, and when you pair it with an advanced enricher, we can process our resources 5 times faster. So that's what we do. We make the advanced enricher. Throw the raw resources into the top chest, get a boost of 125%, then we smelt that all into bars, and that'll end up in this chest right here. All of this for free. But you guys already know how the captain likes it. I now finally make our rocket nose cone. We're getting ready to craft the rest of our tier 1. We get enough steel blocks, and now we can get our first gas tanks. You can get a steel tank by upgrading an iron gas tank with some smashed steel, and we're going to need 2 of these for a rocket. Soon we have both. We can work on the most expensive part of the rocket, the steel engine. I mean, what did you expect? It's a rocket. Of course the engine's going to be the tough part. To be honest though, it's nothing too crazy. Yet. Not for this rocket. In no time, we get one crafted up, and we get our 4 fins, which are super easy. Now, we have everything we need for our very first rocket. I head over to the NASA workbench, drop in our nose cone, those 6 steel blocks, the fins on the side, the engine, and those 2 steel tanks. And boom! Just like that, we have baby's first rocket. Yeah, okay, that achievement's pretty good. But hey, seriously, this is kind of a big deal. With this, we can now do nothing. Yeah, because we still have a lot of work to do if we want to make this thing any more than just a giant paperweight. You wouldn't want me to die the very second I step out of this rocket, would you? Or maybe you do. Well, sadly, that would make for a very bad video. Captain needs his ad revenue to buy more green tea. So unfortunately, we have to get to work. Step 1 is the landing pad, which isn't too scary. You want to know what's actually pretty scary? Yeah, that. A huge rock comes crashing down right next to me, right next to the base. It's the biggest one yet. The hill directly next to my base is completely cratered out and burning. And the roof that is protecting us, protecting everything, is now on fire. Okay, yes, I know, you told me so. I gotta admit, I'm kind of asking for this by making this out of wood. But still, I need to rush to put all of this out before we're completely exposed. After that, little heart attack, I 100% make up my mind. We aren't doing anything more with this rocket until we get some better protection. After all, we've set up this entire industry to make steel. So let's do exactly that. 64 steel plating blocks, and it just costs 9 steel plates. Did any of what I just said make sense? We're turning plates into plating? Anyway, it doesn't really matter, because what it means is we can now turn these steel plating blocks into slabs, and we can get a ton of steel plating coverage for just a few bars of steel. Dude, call me Costco, because I got that big bulk value right here. Or Tesco. What do you guys have in England again? Like, Costco's already a cheap knockoff. How do you guys have a cheap knockoff of a cheap knockoff? Make it make sense, England. Anyway, what was I working on here before I started Euro bashing? Right. I start to cover all of the wooden roof with plates of steel. First off, I know this is fireproof, which is a huge glam up, already a big improvement, but also, this is much, much stronger than wood or stone. Really, it's much stronger than just about anything, maybe other than obsidian. This should be able to withstand a direct asteroid impact. Or at least, that's what I was hoping at the time. Again with the spoilers. Okay, never mind. Look, the important thing is, yes, this is a huge upgrade in function, but more importantly, it's a huge upgrade in fashion. I'm so happy, in fact, to get rid of this ugly wooden roof. I start to light it all on fire. It's kind of cathartic, actually. While this does feel pretty great, the next meteor shower showing up doesn't feel good at all. I think it's only been about 3 days since the last one, which really shows you that these random meteor showers are kind of just random. That's not super great. I decided to take advantage of that last impact crater site, and I clear out all the dirt that was blown up. Now, we have a flat area just outside of our hangar to set down our rockets. Speaking of rockets, we should get back to getting ready for our first space flight. Or, well, never mind. Maybe we should actually get rid of these phantoms first. Yeah, that does sound better. Day 19, and we get our first real sleep. But I'm still feeling pretty tired. Yeah, kind of like real life. Now, we can craft up a pump from mechanism and set it down in our little lake over here. We can set out a pipe to draw water all the way up to the oxygen loader. Then we run some cables from our power to the pipe. We can set out a pipe to draw water from the pump up to the oxygen loader. Then we run cables down from our generators into the pump. That's all good. What's not so good is this close encounter of the worst kind. These aliens will not get off our face. I can use flint and steel to burn them off. Better than lava, at least I don't lose as much health. But now, unfortunately, they don't die right away. I have to fight them and finish them off before they jump right back on my face. At this point, I think I've had like 4 or 5 of these little bugs on my face. If you think about it, going by like alien rules, doesn't that mean at some point an alien should like burst out of my stomach? I mean, obviously it would suck, but could you imagine a mod where you just randomly die like 30 minutes after a bug attacks you? If anybody out there who develops mods, do not get any ideas. And speaking of new ideas, my next idea needs a little bit of wool. So I head out that night to get some. While I'm out here, I actually see this weird spout popping out of the ocean. I boat over to it, and my suspicions are correct. It's an oil well. I quickly make another tank, and I set back out to sea. I then set up this tank on this little wooden platform. Not exactly an oil derrick, I'll admit, but it still gets the job done. It lets us grab buckets and buckets of oil to fill up this tank. We take it, and by day 20, we head back to our base. I've set myself a little goal here, and I'm hoping by day 25, we can actually be up in space, because if we don't, we might start to be falling behind. Good news though, the second I get home, I see that the water we pumped into the oxygen loader has been made into oxygen. Perfect. I also decide to enrich some of my coal. This means that now the coal will last longer when it's an infuser. We can make even more steel for even less coal. So, kind of like I said, you can definitely make your rockets and all the machines you need for space travel in Ad Astra alone. But Mechanisms sure does make it easier. Speaking of making things easier, I decided to get a start on my enchantment library. I know that this is like magic and not science, kind of. It doesn't really fit our whole space theme here, but I don't care. I'm addicted to getting Fortune 3 on my pickaxe since the last video. Besides, I'm not going to get too distracted. I'm still going to make sure we stick to our rockets as I get the launch pad set down, and then set down our very first rocket. I gotta say, it looks pretty good. Ad Astra is really winning me over. But honestly, we should probably wait until we actually get up in space before we decide if we like it or not. Now we need fuel, but I think that's where the oil comes in. I do start to power smelt up more steel, and with it, we can make a fuel refinery. Sure enough, we use the oil to make rocket fuel. Perfect. That little meteorite blowing up right next to me, not so perfect. But then again, that's all the more reason that we should get up into space. I make a tank dedicated to just hold our rocket fuel, and I start to take buckets and buckets over to the rocket. It can hold 3 buckets of fuel. I'm hoping that this means we'll get 3 takeoffs. In no time at all, we do fill up the rocket. But I take a moment here to be a little extra prepared as I try to cook up even more fuel. See, sometimes Captain can be smart. Sometimes. Now we do have to take a little time here to get some extra resources. And by a little time, I mean an entire day. Oh wow, actually it looks like Captain was mining for 3 whole days. Okay, you're kind of embarrassing me in front of the crew here. Still, we are on time for our day 25 launch schedule. So after coming to the surface in the middle of the ocean, I head back to the other side of the mountain to start mining some obsidian. Now we can make the enchantment table and some bookshelves to boot. I do decide to add a tiny little floor out of deep slate slabs, because remember, I am only playing 1.20 for like the second time. I'm still super in love with this block. I then slap down the enchantment table and a couple of bookshelves, and I can see that we have efficiency 1, which, yeah, I'll just admit it out loud. It's simply beneath me. It's a measly peasant's enchant, and I shan't have it. You heard what I said, you dumb meteor. I'm not afraid of you. Oh, but also, like, don't kill me or anything. Day 24, and I'm kind of running out of time here. Probably should get back to the rocket making. I craft up some upgrades for my mech machines to speed them up a little bit. But with our basic energy coming out of these heat generators, they can't really take too much of it. I don't really have time to upgrade the power source of the base, so we'll have to take these upgrades out, and the fact that we crafted them, let's just call it a happy accident. Hey, that's what my mom calls me. Finally, I get to use all of that wool that we collected on day 19, and I start to make our first spacesuit. Each piece needs a little bit of wool, but mostly it needs steel. Now, I'm not sure you should be making a spacesuit out of wool, but honestly, I have no time to worry about that. I'm too busy looking at how sick this fit is. With this, I do in fact intend to flex on those broke boy Xenos scum for real. Finally, I get my suit filled with oxygen, but something tells me that this probably is the bare minimum. So I start to make some of the same gas tanks that I made for the rocket, only this time I fill them with oxygen. They fill up with 1K units of oxygen. Now I have no idea what that means, but it's the same amount of oxygen that the suit can hold, so at the very least I've now doubled my oxygen. I think. I also make sure to spend a little time getting a little extra fuel, in case I use more than I'm thinking I might. Okay, I'll be honest with you guys. I wasn't really preparing here, I just thought it was cherry Kool-Aid. You got me. So, just to be safe, I make myself 2 more tanks, so now I have 4 spacesuits worth of oxygen. Man, Americans will measure with any unit before they use metric. This, combined with some food and the tools we already have, is what we're going to be going up with. Is this all we need? I have no idea. I guess we'll find out when we're up in space. We're doing this full-on Soviet space program style here. I say my goodbyes to my little Aldrin here, and jump into my own cozy little death trap. I press this shiny red button, and the countdown starts. Now, I have to say, I'm starting to wonder if a rocket made out of solid steel is really a good idea. Or a spacesuit I crocheted from wool. Is any of this going to work? Too late now, because we're already blasting off. As the rocket violently shakes and fires up into the sky, I've got to say, this mod is amazing. This is such a cool way to take off. I'm 100% into this. Soon, we are up in orbit, where I could see that our only option for a Tier 1 rocket is the moon. If it worked for some old guys in the 60s, it'll work for me, so here we go. I start to plummet down towards the lunar surface, and at the last minute, I fire my thrusters to slow down the impact. Man, if I crashed into the moon and died, that would have been a really sad way to lose this challenge. But hey, look at us now. Here we are on the surface of another cosmic body. And this time, we didn't even have to fake it. I gotta say, right away, it feels like super alien and weird. I start to float around with the bare minimum gravity, and so many thoughts are like rushing through my head. This is really cool if you think about it. I'm playing Minecraft in space, guys. No Man's Sky's got nothing on me. But also, this really does feel like truly alien. I head down under the barren surface and find cheese. I find frickin' cheese on the moon. Okay, Ad Astra, they can meme. You gotta give it to them. That being said, though, I really hope there's more than just cheese here on the moon. I also hope that you guys don't mind that I'm going to turn the clouds off in my shader settings. It's kind of weird that there's like puffy white rain clouds up in the sky on the moon. And while this does look much better, still don't know if there would be a blue sky on the moon, but this is the best I can do. Oh, and hey, speaking of a little bit unrealistic, I find a moon village. I came all the way to space to escape these things, but yep, here they are. They do sell basic Ad Astra supplies, which is cool in case you run out, but the towers they live in are way cooler. To be totally honest with you guys, like personally, I kind of don't like seeing structures like fake stuff like this on the moon. It's super unrealistic and it kind of breaks the whole vibe of this alien world. At the same time, free stuff. I take some books, which is perfect, exactly what I need for my library back on Earth. And while I'm here, I do see a material called Desh. Now I think I had seen in the JUI for Ad Astra that we're going to have to collect a good amount of this. But like I said, I kind of don't like this tower, so I'm kind of done with this. Let's get back to the real moon. I leave this tower to do some real mining, and right away, I find it. Desh ore. I already know I'm going to need a lot of this. Each world you travel to has its own ore, like Desh, but also some vanilla ores too. For example, I'm already finding a ton of iron. I also see some ice shards, but I don't really know what to do with these yet. What I do see is that we're going to need a lot of Desh, so I try to move as fast as I can and mine up as much as possible before I run out of air. In truth, there are few dangers and no real mobs to worry about, but we need to be careful and keep a close eye on our food and oxygen supplies. Now, because I have limited space, no pun, I then eject the tank. I gotta say, other than this goofy villager tower, this mod nails the vibes. They're huge, ominous, underground caverns on the moon. They add so much scale, and it really makes a tense journey. There's a ton of good loot down here, even on the very first planet, and it really makes you want to go deeper and deeper. Kind of lures you into getting lost. And I mean getting lost. Because if we go too deep, and we can't escape back to the surface and get back home before our air gets too low, well, let's just say for now, making 3 tanks was the right play. Unfortunately, bringing useless items like my armor set to fill up my inventory was not. They're taking up a lot of space that I need to collect more Desh and iron. I feel bad getting rid of perfectly good tanks, but I need to move fast and efficiently. The 3 tanks and all of my food do last me well into day 27. I've made a pretty solid haul here, but it's definitely getting close to time to go. I don't want to play any more drama here. I make sure to get back to the surface with plenty of air to spare. I still have about 50% of my soup, so I'm totally okay. Well, I would have been okay if I had a bucket to refuel my rocket. Turns out, one trip uses all 3 buckets of rocket fuel, so we have to completely refuel it to leave. Okay, easy enough. We brought the tank full of fuel, but we didn't bring the bucket to move the fuel into the rocket. Now we're stuck on the moon, and I'm panicking. Now I have a very small amount of oxygen to try to figure out a solution. Now, the first step is I can run to the tower. I know I saw a blast furnace there. I can smelt up 3 iron. Good. Now I just need There it is. Oh, thank God. A crafting table. We make our bucket, but we only have a few more seconds of air. I throw down the landing pad right in front of the tower. No time to try to find a better area to take off. I quickly, as fast as I can, start to dump fuel into the rocket. And of course, I am fumbling. I'm actually panicking IRL right now. I'm using up the last little bits of my air. Plus, now I can see that when I go into the rocket, that doesn't stop me from using oxygen. That means we have to get into the ship, run the countdown, and take off into space before I run out of air. Now the countdown finishes and we shoot off with only 14%. Just barely get into space with a few seconds of oxygen left. It took Apollo 11 over 4 days to get back to Earth, but I'm glad Ad Astra does not make us go through that, because if we had, we would be very, very dead. Luckily, I managed to fumble my way out of a very close call on the moon. We do get out of the danger as we come back down to Earth. It wasn't hard enough of a landing to do any damage, I guess. With that, we did just pull off the most haphazard and goofy trip to space I've ever seen. I could have died up there in like 10 different ways, but once again, Captain somehow made it all work. And remember, that was just the moon. We need to find a way to stop an asteroid. For now though, let's just focus on what we can handle. We start to cook up our desh and all of the iron we found. This is a huge boost to our industry. With this alone, it's definitely worth it to take the trips to the other worlds. At least that's what I'm assuming. I'm guessing that our other destinations will have even better loot, and I'm excited to go explore them. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, that's still way off. First, let's get back into our armor, and we'll take all those books that I stole, I mean specimens that I have collected for science, and make ourselves our full library. Even though I'm definitely pretty pumped to have this whole thing, the Unbreaking 3 is, a little less exciting. However, I do have a much bigger plan. While I'm cooking up all of our desh, I start to work on getting 4 infusers. Now we can start to upgrade all of our alloys. Step 1 is, find a way to process this iron faster. I'm literally suffering from success, but also enriching both redstone and some diamonds as well. I know we don't have too many diamonds, but this is going to be a good investment. I hope. We also need to farm a bit more obsidian, and soon we have everything we need to make our most upgraded alloys. Also, obsidian is crushed into 4 dust, so that's pretty nice. Now, we can put the enriched redstone into one infuser, the diamond into another, and soon we can start to make refined obsidian in the 3rd infuser. First though, we are going to have to make one other machine, the osmium compressor. This takes refined obsidian and a bar of osmium to make a bar of refined obsidian. Buzz flies on by, and he tells me that I stink of the moon. It's a good stink. Soon, we get our first bars of refined obsidian, which is the top tier material in all of Mechanism. It's better than diamonds even. Well, obviously it's better than diamonds. You literally have to use diamonds to make it. I'd say it's right up there with netherite. We make a refined obsidian pickaxe, axe, and shovel. But even better than that, we can combine all of these into one paxel, a multi-tool that can do the jobs of all 3 of these tools without needing to switch them all up. Now the reason that we rushed this new material and to make this new tool is to enchant them. That being said, our first enchant here is just some poopy dog water unbreaking. The good news is, unbreaking on a material this strong will probably last us all the way through the 100 days, but we could definitely do better. So let's do exactly that. We get some more cooking and go out to farm a little more obsidian. That's good. This creeper right here, blowing up some of my machines, not so good. Luckily, those machines weren't too expensive, and we can get back to making more refined obsidian. With this enchant, we can get efficiency 4 on this paxel, which is a lot better. But I also see that we can get our sword up to sharpness 4. So now we make a sword out of refined obsidian, and we get sharpness 4, which brings its damage to 14.5. That is insane if you think about it. That's almost double a diamond sword. Wow. Now if only I had the skills to actually use this thing. In the meantime, I start to make some alloy furnaces from Nuclearcraft. I'd like to get a head start on making the materials for our nuclear fission reactor. Or at least that's what I was hoping at the time. By that night, we now have 2 of them set down on the power grid. But I see that in this version of Nuclearcraft, which is 1.20, we need to make lead plates. That's not good news. Also, I see that we need tough alloy. I already knew that, which is why we made the furnaces. Then, I see that this is going to take steel and boron. We haven't found any boron in almost 30 days in this entire world. That's not good. In fact, that's so bad, it's actually game-breaking. But for right now, I can't really focus on that. I'm a little too distracted with surviving. You know, meteorites, phantoms, the usual. So let's head to bed. At the start of the next day is when I go out mining, because I'm still keeping up hope that I can find some boron. Or, you know, maybe I'm just dumb and naive enough. By the way, this is only the beginning of my problems. I'm really struggling to find lead, which I need a lot of, but at least I'm finding some of this. Because in addition to not finding boron, I also haven't found any lithium, another super critical nuclearcraft ore. The good news is we're finding plenty of osmium, so there's that. The bad news is I just found some more lead, which is good, right? Well, when I try to mine it with this brand new tool, the Paxel, it just poof, it's gone. Yeah, just disappears. Kind of like my hopes and dreams. On the bright side though, at least when I find some of this mechanism lead, it does still work just fine. I have no idea what's really happening here, or why this mod pack hates me, and the worst part is, I made this mod pack. I keep on trying for a full another day, hoping to find any nuclearcraft ores. But no luck, I'll have to find another way to fix this problem. For now, I'm a bit too preoccupied wondering if this one's going to be the one. Is this rock headed straight for my base, gonna crush everything I've built, take me out of my misery? Ah, not quite. Next time maybe. I drop all of my ore into the top chest to be processed, and then I head over to the enchantment table to see that I can finally get Fortune 3 and Efficiency 4. So of course, I take this and my first Paxel, I combine them together, and I get hope. My last little shred of hope. That's what I get. Now I can get back to mining. Every time I find some mechanism ore, like lead, the fortune on this Paxel does give me a few extra ores, which might be exactly what I need right now. Also, let's face it, sooner or later, we will need some uranium, so there's no point in passing this up. I keep mining into day 31, and I keep finding more uranium. I keep going until I find diamond, which is a cool thing, right? Because, you know, diamonds. Everybody loves diamonds. But unfortunately, this is really starting to show me that something's wrong. Think about it. If I'm finding diamonds before I'm finding boron or lithium, then it means that this world has spawned with none of these ores inside them. Psst. Did you hear the part where I said this world? Wink, wink. I then shove my way past all the bad foreshadowing, and I keep looking for more ores to help us get to our next planet. But then, well, by the sound of all of that, I'm thinking that the planets might have come to us. The good news is, when I slowly come back to the surface, I see that the base is still in one piece. So I drop off another load of ores, and then I start back up on the important stuff. We're going to start to work on our Tier 2 rocket. The second rocket does in fact take dash. And with this, I'm already starting to get an idea on how the progress in Ad Astra works. The second rocket is made from materials that you access by using the first rocket. So the third rocket is then going to be made out of materials that we get using the second rocket. You guys kind of get the plot here. What that means is, I can't simply wait around to the end of the 100 days to start making my rockets. I have to constantly be working on this. It's going to take a long time to finally get through to the best rocket. And while the nose cone, the fins, and the blocks of Desh are all easy to craft up, I see one more possible problem in our future. The tanks and the engine of this rocket are made by adding Desh to steel tanks and a steel engine. Now, the reason why that might be a problem later on, it might not be clear right now, but don't worry, soon it will become painfully obvious. For now, the big problem is, we need to have almost as much steel for the first rocket as we will for this second rocket, so we quickly have to start cooking some up. Good news is, our mechanism infusers help out with this a lot, and soon we have our steel tanks and our steel engine. We can cover all of this with some Desh plates, and at the start of day 33, we now have all the materials we need to make our Desh Tier 2 rocket. We set them in the NASA workbench. And bing, bang, bars, our rocket's ready to head to the launch pad, where it does look very pretty. Luckily, this rocket can run on the same fuel as the first rocket, and we already have plenty of that. Now, I still do cook up a little bit more. I'm worried that maybe a longer trip to Mars might take more fuel. I don't really know. maybe I'm just making this all up in my head. What I definitely know is important is that we absolutely should be getting some more gas tanks, which we can combine 3 of them together to make one large gas tank. This holds 3 times the oxygen, obviously, but it only takes up 1 tank, which is good, because now I'm realizing how making rockets work. I'm thinking we might need to take a lot longer, mining a lot more resources on each planet that we go to. So, before I change into my spacesuit right here, once again, I fill this up with oxygen, and I even craft up a 3rd large tank, which I fill up with oxygen as well. This means I should have a total of 10 suits worth. God, I still don't have a very good way of measuring that. But anyway, you know what I mean. That's not important right now. What's more important is that we have plenty of oxygen in our tanks, fuel in our rockets, and bravery in our hearts. As we head into the great unknown, once more, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Oh, and exploding. That stuff's scary. Soon, in orbit, I do in fact see that we have one new option to travel to, and that's Mars. So of course, we set off. Now, we're falling towards the small red planet, and soon, the world below comes into view. Right away, I can see that it's much more dynamic than the surface of the moon. It has ice caps and huge mountains and giant valleys. And a lot more horrible things too, but you'll see that soon enough. For now, I try to go extra hard on the thrusters and the brakes, because I know that this planet does have slightly more gravity than the moon. And once again, it works, as we make a safe landing. Sure, it's a lot more harsh and dangerous, but it's so much more cool looking. And even though it has less structures, I like that. Definitely like the vibes here. If boys come from Mars, then send me back, because I'm home. Although, speaking of structures on Mars, we do end up having these small temples of Ares. Oh, of course, along with these bad boys. Martian raptors are proper, dangerous alien life forms. Without my armor, I do need to be really careful with these guys. Not too crazy, but they definitely keep you on your toes. I kind of like that. Once we actually get inside of this temple behind him, we find a whole block of Ostrom, the new ore from Mars. Perfect. And we find something even more interesting in this chest over here. Boron blocks. So it's true. Not only do we have to travel to all these planets to make better and better rockets, we also have to leave Earth and travel to every single planet and mine up all the ores for Nuclearcraft so that we can make our fission reactor. Yes, I know that this is unrealistic. All of the materials that we're collecting on these planets obviously naturally exist on Earth, like in real life. Obviously, we can make nuclear reactors in the real world. Look, guys, don't think about it too much, okay? Besides, you should be thinking more about this. We find our first Ostrom ore. Perfect. But it gets even better, because we can find some more ice shards, we find some more iron, and now we even start to find some boron ores too. Although I gotta say, they kind of look out of place here on Mars. Kind of suspicious there, huh? Nah, it seems legit, I'm sure. Besides, I can't spend too much time thinking about why these are here. I have to keep moving on anyways. I really need to make sure I have enough boron and enough Ostrom, since I'm realizing just how much I'm gonna need. Every time you visit a new planet, you start a mini speedrun, basically. Your resources and time are always super tight, and yet you have to go as deep and as far down into the planet as you can to get all the resources you need. Taking a break to head back to Earth just to resupply would be a huge headache, and we kind of might not have enough time to do that. But of course, on the other hand, if you get lost, well, let's not think about that, because we should be happy. Turns out, deep down in Mars, we have a ton of diamonds. Yeah, I don't know if that really works either. Like, diamonds are made out of carbon. And carbon's usually associated with organic matter, and this is Mars. Yeah, what am I doing? Why am I questioning getting all these diamonds? I'm literally getting stacks and stacks of them, and it's only been the first few days on Mars. I'm staying here as long as I can. With all these giant tanks of oxygen, that could be a while. I've only used one of my 3 large tanks, and I've already gotten a whole inventory that's looking pretty good. Oh, and by the way, speaking of looking good, check out all these caves and cliffs down underneath Mars. The landscape here is crazy and I love it. There's these huge ravines that go all the way down to lava and then pop all the way up to the surface with these huge arching curves everywhere. Also, while I'm up here on the surface, I decided to travel to the ice caps to check it out. And yeah, it's ice. Yeah, come on now. I mean, they can't all be winners here. Still though, it just adds some nice flavor, I think. I come across another temple with more ostrum and more boron. It's been 2 days since I landed, but my supplies are still looking pretty good. So I decide to keep on going, and I find another huge cave and continue mining. And as I explore around, I can't tell what I love more: the super expensive resources that we're collecting, or the crazy underground world. This place is truly entrancing. No, really. I mean, like, I have to make sure I don't fall into a trance here and lose my train of thought. My oxygen does get low again, but honestly, I'm kind of more worried that we might run out of food before we run out of air. It's now day 37, and I'm struck by another realization. I'm not going to run out of food or oxygen. I'm going to run out of time. Remember, I still have to travel to a couple other planets, and I have to save a few days to travel on them as well. Not to mention the reactor and making the bomb. Probably shouldn't rush those two things either. I dig a long way, all the way up to the surface. I was smart enough to take my launch pad and my rocket with me, so we don't have to go bumbling around trying to find those. We just need to fill this rocket up with 3 buckets of fuel, and of course, marvel at my beautiful inventory. And, just like that, we should be ready. After getting a better understanding of what space travel and the time it takes on each planet would be like, I have to say, I nailed my Mars trip. Honestly, my genuine critique, the only thing I could say I didn't do too well, is I took a little too long here. But I guess we'll see if that's really true soon enough. For now, let's fart our way down to a safer landing and get back to good old Earth. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. This isn't my home. Where am I? Okay, so the good news is we aren't dead, didn't blow up on impact, so that's nice. But for some reason, I've landed nowhere near our base. In fact, when I check our position, we're almost 500 blocks away. Well, I guess it could be worse though. I mean, I've literally packed for a long expedition on a hostile planet. So a short walk back to my home shouldn't be too bad. I jump in this river and I do see something kind of interesting. You can use the spacesuit and your oxygen like a diving suit, which is kind of neat. And what's definitely pretty neat is in no time at all, I can see the very peak of our mountain over the horizon. And finally, we've made it home. Not as ceremonious as landing in our spaceship, but yeah, this'll do. I do set our rocket back down where it should have landed in the first place. And then we get working on smelting up all our ostrum and boron as well. Also, not gonna lie, those 2.5 stacks of diamonds are pretty nice too. Okay, so now our next goal is pretty clear. Even with all this boron, we can't proceed to a nuclear reactor without our lithium. So we are gonna have to end up exploring the whole solar system, trying to find some lithium, just like we did with boron. That means our next objective is trying to get our Tier 3 and our Tier 4 rockets ASAP. In the meantime, we can combine our steel with our boron in the alloy furnace, which gets ferroboron, an alloy that lets us make a ton of nuclearcraft machines, just not the reactor. And while that cooks up, we already have our 6 blocks of ostrum, pretty quick I gotta say. We get our first fins, and the nose cone is already ready too. And now, the thing that I'm kind of worried about. Just like I thought, when we were making that Tier 2 rocket, we need to make ostrum tanks and an ostrum engine for this rocket. Which means we have to make a steel tank, then upgrade it with DESH, then finally upgrade it with ostrum. Which means every time we make a new rocket, we have to incorporate all of the metals from the previous rockets. We grabbed a ton of ostrum from Mars because I was kind of thinking this in the back of my head. But with that very first panicked trip that we took to the moon, I'm thinking we might eventually run out of DESH. For now though, it does look like we're okay, because we can get our 2 ostrum tanks. Unfortunately now, our DESH is really low. Once again, we are going to have to do a little extra work to make our ostrum engine. See, every time you upgrade your engine, you have to add another steel fan, which means that this engine needs I think 4 fans. So yeah, you're starting to get the idea here. Every single rocket really stacks up in its price, directly on top of the last rocket. Not only in both exotic materials from other planets, but also just in a ton of steel. And remember, we have this whole industrial setup with the mechanism machines to help us get steel much, much faster. If you only have Ad Astra alone, this would take a really long time. But I'm done complaining, because soon we have our ostrum engine. We set all of our parts in the NASA workbench, and finally we get our Tier 3 rocket. To be honest, this bad boy is a huge step up. It unlocks almost everything in Ad Astra. Almost. The only place we can't go in this rocket is, ironically, the asteroid that we really need to get to. But to be honest, building the Tier 3 rocket might be the easy part. Yeah, really. See, in order to travel to Venus and Mercury and withstand the intense heat on both these planets, we're gonna have to make a new spacesuit. One that's built on netherite armor at its core. This means that I'm gonna have to take a crash course on how to make netherite gear in 1.20. Yeah. So of course, I grab some obsidian for our portal, but I actually take a quick detour. And I start to make even more refined obsidian first. With this, we can make our refined obsidian armor, which like, this stuff is amazing. Honestly, I know for a fact this has much better stats than diamond armor. I think it might even be better than netherite. If you think about it, making netherite gear when you're playing mechanisms would just kind of be pointless. I mean, I guess, unless you're also playing Ad Astra. So of course, now we're gonna have to do it. After kitting up with this amazing gear, and getting myself a shield too, we should be ready for our trip into the nether. I head down into my mine, and I dig out and set out a portal. You guys know how I do this. At the start of day 40, with meteorites still falling all around me, I kiss little Aldrin goodbye. Yum, you taste like moon dust too. And then I head to my least favorite place in all of Minecraft, the nether. We spawn in, and dang, I was kind of hoping we would just pop up inside of a fortress. Oh well. Hey, at least we do find some of these glowing mushrooms. Now, I should be able to make Radaway, if I need to. Well, let's be honest, we all know I'm gonna need to. And soon, I'm off on my journey to find something called a smithing template. Now, genuinely, I'm not gonna try to bore you guys with this whole journey. Now, you probably all have done this before. You probably know smithing templates and making netherite gear way better than I possibly do. Even though all this stuff is gonna be new to me, I don't wanna bore you guys, so I'm gonna skip most of this. So I did know that I was supposed to be looking for a bastion remnant. I knew it kind of looked like it was made out of blackstone, so I started looking around the basalt delta. Yeah, that's how new to this I was. But hey, on the bright side, at least I did find this. Good old nether fortress. I head inside because I'm hoping that I might get lucky, and maybe I'll find this smithing template in one of these chests. While I was here, I do decide to grab some blaze rods, just in case. And right about here is actually where I start to feel a whole lot better. This refined obsidian armor is so good, I can basically just cakewalk through these mobs. No skill required. The only real danger is, well, the wither. Yeah, the wither still hurts me through my armor, so there's that. Other than that, though, I just have to be pretty careful, take things slowly, and not fall into the lava or anything like that. I'm actually pretty safe, as long as I don't, stay in the nether too long. And after looking through all these chests and starting to realize I was not going to get lucky and have a quick in and out with the nether. No templates here, but you guys probably already knew that. And honestly, deep down, I kind of knew it too. But I'm not too heartbroken, because pretty soon, I see what definitely looks like a bastion. And I was thinking this might be the end of my nether journey. That's what I was hoping. Step 1 is clearing out all the piglings. Honestly, these guys could be a huge deal. I totally see where these guys could be a pain. But I'm already so strong, I don't really have to worry about them too much. At the start of my exploration of the bastion, I see these brutes. I can kill them pretty quickly. Luckily, I was smart enough to make some pretty solid preparations, and I used a couple of tricks here and there. And in the end, I only have like a couple of close calls. And soon, I find the top chest. And I'm glad I'm going to be able to get out of here. I'm headed home. Okay, guys, come on now. You know, if I'm talking this confidently, there's no way this is going to work out for me. Turns out, all I find is these trim templates, which I was kind of getting my hopes up. I thought maybe this was what I was looking for. Although the more and more I was like looking into it, the more I was realizing that our journey is nowhere near done. Now, I'm not complaining too much, because after all, we did manage to find some pretty good loot here, mostly like the netherite scrap and debris. But still, after searching every single block in this bastion and finding not a single upgrade, I knew that it was time for me to move on. By the way, really quick, I don't know, can we talk about this? Maybe I'm like 2 years too late, but like, I'm not crazy, right? This sucks. Like, I totally get it. Back in 1.16, everybody would have netherite armor by like day 1, and it made diamond armor kind of seem like booty cheeks, and Mojang wanted to make it way, way harder to get netherite gear, so that diamond armor would be like cooler. Yeah, I guess I get that, but like, dude, looking for these templates to make netherite gear is not fun. Maybe it's just because I don't like netherite already, but something about this just seems like it totally sucks. Like, I love exploring the end. I love finding elytra and all that, but this just seems like it's a huge extra step. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me know if I'm being a baby about this or if you guys agree. Doesn't really matter though. On day 43, I find this beast. Yeah, this huge remnant. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I've really been looking for. This is a real bastion remnant. So I break into this wall, and of course, the very first chest I find has nothing. Come on, guys. Now, you knew I was going to say that. Can't fall for that kind of stuff. Okay, though, but honestly, there's a chest right there, right in the middle of the lava. I see it, but at the same time, I'm thinking, it's like too dangerous to get to. I don't want to get stuck out there. So for now, I leave it alone. Instead, I start to head up the bastion, level by level, searching every chest. Luckily, I do get into this chest. And, bingo, our first smithing template. Finally, we've done it. Now, if I had a brain, this would be it, and I would be immediately trying to get out of the nether. See, I already looked it up. I already know I can dupe these using some diamonds, so there's no reason I should be staying here. Of course, that would require said brain, so obviously I stay in here and look through every single chest and get myself in way too much danger. What's funny is the very first chest that I saw way down at the bottom of the bastion, which I left behind, yeah, it turns out it had a template in it the entire time. Honestly, me and the nether just do not mix, dude. I don't know what it is about this place, but I really do not like being down here. And for some reason, I can't get myself to leave. Deep down, I know that I'm still going to have to farm ancient debris. After all, the whole point of this is I have to make a full set of netherite gear. Now, I could go and just mine debris in the nether, but at the same time, there seems to be a ton of debris and scrap here in the remnant. So even if it is a little bit dumb, I admit, I stay and I fight. I keep looking for all the loot I can. I do manage to finally pull together 5 pieces of ancient debris. And on day 44, I somehow actually managed to get out of this bastion without dying. I know, I'm shocked too. Oh, and then I actually did this on the way home. Like, I thought this was kind of funny. Did you know if you guys break the blocks in front of a zombie pigling, they just like walk straight into the lava? Come on now. So now I still have to go about 400 blocks back to my portal. But I decide, instead of just walking over the surface, why not try mining underneath everything? Turns out this is a pretty solid idea, because like right away, I find a piece of debris. That brings us to a total of 6. Sadly though, as I continue doing this for like a while, I only find rivers of lava flooding in on me. Eventually, I work my way back up to the surface, only to find another bastion. Yeah, seriously, like this thing was right next to my portal the whole time. Now this time, I make a beeline for the bottom chest surrounded by lava in the center. Sure enough, we get even more debris, and we even get a whole bar of netherite. As good as that is, I don't want to waste too much time in the bastion. I know the longer I'm down here, the worse my odds are for surviving, and I start heading back to my portal to get back home to some safety. Well, you know, as safe as a world that's constantly being bombarded by asteroids can be. But hey, I do have a little more good news, like actually really good news this time. Turns out, you can put ancient debris inside of an enricher, and you double the scrap output. This means we're now 1 scrap short of 6 bars of netherite. Not too bad. Now, I can copy my smithing templates. I start to make my first ever netherite gear with this new goofy template system. I craft up another double chest, which I put right over here. This is where I'm going to put all my netherite loot, and I place it in just the right spot to get absolutely obliterated if another meteor shower happens. And so, of course, I get exactly what I deserve, and this happens. This one came down so close that it's only like a block away from setting my new chest on fire. And this is literally just the start of this shower. With this world falling apart around me, I figured this is a good time to get my netherite helmet upgraded to my tier 2 spacesuit. Sadly, it does lose its enchants, which kind of sucks. But hey, this spacesuit will keep me from burning up on Venus, so I guess it's a fair trade-off. I then continue to use up all of my smithing templates because, after all, I'm definitely not going to need them anymore. Okay, I'm not actually dumb enough to do that. I just wanted to say it to see if you guys would freak out. I'm still smart enough to dupe the templates and keep a few extra just in case. Soon, we have our netherite space boots, our pants, and now we just need to put together the chest plate. This does take a few extra little things like tanks and steel, but nothing too expensive. Nothing as expensive as netherite, that's for sure. We can now pump twice as much oxygen into this suit, so that's good. I gotta say, what's even better is how we look. Nice and crisp. Oh, also, it is kind of a lot better to have a spacesuit that's not, made out of wool, too. Even with this huge journey to the Nether and all this preparation, we're still not ready for our next trip into space. We now need to upgrade our fuel to get even further out with the new rockets. This is actually where those ice shards come in. And sadly, I have tried all of my tools in the enchantment table. I cannot find Silk Touch. I decide to upgrade my armor. Maybe like a reroll of enchants will help me out. I even throw an enchant on a book. Out of desperation? I don't know. Now I'm starting to run low on XP though. I enchant one more piece of my armor. Now I'm a level below 30 and I still don't get Silk Touch. If that dumb little mistake, if this is the bottleneck that's the reason we can't stop the asteroid, I am actually going to cry. But I try one more trick. Maybe I can enchant my axe. And sure enough, this does give us Silk Touch. And of course, I get it after I've already used up my XP. But I guess Mojang doesn't totally hate me. Maybe they pity me, because after messing around with my torches, I managed to get Silk Touch at level 28. If I couldn't get this enchant, that would have been a little embarrassing. I mean, it was already a pretty embarrassing affair. It would have been more embarrassing. Now, at the start of day 47, we can run up the mountain and start to harvest a little bit of ice. The good news is it's packed ice. The bad news is we need blue ice, so we're gonna have to harvest a little bit more than just 2 pieces. But at the same time, I don't want to shave all the ice off the mountain and completely ruin it. This poor beauty has been through enough. We make our blue ice, and with that, we can make our cryo freezer. Set this down on the power grid and start to melt down, or maybe freeze up our fuel. I don't really know. Anyway, what I do know is that the packed ice only melts down to 1/1000th of a bucket of fuel. Woo, not good. We would have to mine the entire mountain dry at this point to get 1 bucket of fuel. Luckily, as everybody who's watching, and myself included, probably could already guess, the real correct way to make cryo fuel is to put ice shards in the cryo freezer. Now, it still does take a lot of them, but it works much, much better. We get another tank to hold the cryo fuel in, but yeah, let's just say we don't have to worry about that just yet. It's going to take us a long, long time to get some of this stuff. Honestly, I'm just hoping we can make enough buckets to get off this planet by day 100. At the same time, though, I'm probably being a little dramatic there, because by that night, we finally do get at least 1 bucket's worth. So since that's going to take, forever, let's find something else to do in the meantime. For example, let's remove all the dirt and replace all the floors in the base with even more deep slate. Now, I know that grass in Minecraft doesn't burn too much, but still, it's nice to have a more solid, fireproof floor that looks good. Also, I'm just bored. Finally, by the very start of day 48, we start getting a decent amount of cryo fuel. We can get changed into our new, powerful spacesuit that was super expensive and really hard to get, so it better work. And soon, I see that we do in fact have 5 buckets worth of fuel, including the one that's in the rocket. Unfortunately, I do get to see that this suit, I guess, doesn't protect us from cold, because I kind of spilt some of the cryo fuel onto the floor of my lab. You know me. What a goof. Still, I continue to get more fuel throughout the day until I do officially have those 5 extra buckets. This should be more than enough, I'm hoping. Now, I take one last look over my checklist. Food, check. Oxygen, check. Landing pad, check. The will to live? We'll circle back on that one. For now, it's looking like we're ready to take off to our 3rd planet before the 50-day mark. That would put us well ahead of schedule. I just have to hope that I don't run across anything that I didn't plan for. So, once again, we step into our shuttle and head into the unknown. We take one more step towards saving this world, even if that means leaving it. Soon, up in orbit, I see that we have the options for Venus or Mercury, but I've already made up my mind here. We're falling down into the crushing Venetian atmosphere. Now, I'm not gonna lie, you're probably thinking to yourself, I don't know, those clouds kind of look like puffy white rain clouds. But hey, you've never been to Venus, you don't know. Well, I sure didn't know what I was about to walk into. I step out of the capsule for half a second and into Venus's rain. my health starts to plummet as I'm burning up right away. I was positive that this netherite suit was going to be able to protect us, but it looks like I missed something after all. I jumped back into the space shuttle to rethink my plans. Yeah, definitely I'm not cowering, hiding for my life. No. First piece of good news is we only used a third of our cryofuel. Not that solves our current problem. The other piece of good news is I can eat in here and get my health up without taking any more damage. Also, I have one more idea. It's a stupid idea, but hey, it's an idea. I start to run out into the pain, and I start to dig as fast as I can, trying to hide from the falling rain. And, wow, look at that. My genius wins out again. Man, I'm smart. So it turns out this spacesuit does protect us from the heat. It doesn't protect us from the sulfuric acid rain on Venus. Yeah, that's the problem. Down here in my little foxhole, we are safe. I mean, I guess. Weirdly, it seems like the best idea from now on is to just keep on digging down. Unfortunately, I seem to be right over this huge pit, and I have to kind of dig around it in order to find my way down. To be honest though, this is kind of perfect. After all, the whole point of coming to Venus is we wanted to dig down here, right? So we get started. First, we do find some coal, and like a lot of it. This is great, don't get me wrong, but I was kind of hoping that all of this work to get us to Venus would get us a little more than just some coal. Finally though, we then find some diamonds. Yeah, that's better, but still... Okay, here we go. This is more of what I was hoping for. Finally, we find some lithium ore. This is what we really came here for, and it will make the trip well worth it. I think. As I dig back up to the surface, I can see it's still raining. Does Venus just constantly have acid rain? Huh. If it does, well, then I'm kind of stuck down here. I have to go back down, and I see that there's even rain pouring into the open caverns. And it's a really good thing I don't have realistic water physics in this mod pack. And another good thing is, we are finally finding some calorite. Calorite is the next material we need to make our best rocket. And right away, I am starting to notice that calorite is only really spawning deep down underneath the planet. This is even more intense than any of the other planets. I think. I don't know. Maybe I just have space madness here. Look, what matters is I'm finally starting to find a good amount of calorite and even more lithium the deeper and deeper I go. Now the good news is we might not need too much calorite. After all, this is going to be our last rocket. All of this, and we've only used up one suit's worth of air. Kinda. Remember, this suit can hold double the air. So when I go to fill it up, I do use up like almost all of the large gas tank. But still, we have a ton of air. We can keep going all that night. I come up to the surface to see that the rain has stopped and we can actually get out of here. The first thing I do is I head back to the landing site. I decide it's probably a good idea to keep the rocket with me in case it starts raining again and we really need to leave. Still, we got plenty of oxygen, plenty of food, and plenty of time. Let's see what else we can find. As we continue to collect more and more calorite, I start to notice that the caves of Venus are much darker. They're more tight and cramped than Mars or the Moon. Mining down here seems a lot more claustrophobic. I'm not really loving it like I did on Mars. Of course, if I knew what the next planets had in store for me, I would be loving Venus. But for now, I'm just slowly moving through this world, making sure I collect everything I need. I also make sure not to suffocate. That would be a smart play too. And even though I've been down here for a pretty long time, I remember that I don't need to fill up my inventory. I still do have a limited amount of time. No need to get too greedy and waste too much of that time. So, on the night of day 50, we come up to the starry sky night. Which doesn't make any sense on a planet like Venus. Okay, time to plan our escape. On a quick side note, you'll also notice that I did not explore the structures, and that's because I just don't like the vibe. A planet like Venus should not have any buildings on it. Sorry. They just seem a little silly. Maybe I'm stupid, maybe there's a bunch of great loot in there, but honestly, I just want to get out of here. Let's go make our last rocket. One more time, we head up into the sky, hoping that we still have an Earth to come home to. As we come back down into our home atmosphere, I see that there are burning craters all over the place. We really are taking a beating. But to be honest with you guys, this was the easy half of the video. For now though, let's just get all of our lithium and all of our calorite into our processing machines. Daddy wants a new fission reactor. That's me, by the way. From now on, you're all to refer to me as Daddy Captain. That's the rule from now on. day 51, and now we're in the end game of this challenge. We just lived through another meteor shower, but this one wasn't too bad. What I'm more excited about is now we have lithium. We can combine this with our ferroboron in an alloy furnace. You boys know it, you boys love it, or else. It's tough alloy. It's just in time, because we're completely bottlenecked by all of our power needs here. We're going to definitely need a stronger power source to get our calorite cooked up for our last rocket. Now, I know what you're thinking, because I'm thinking it too. Time for our big glowy boy, right? But not just yet. Things will be a lot easier if first we take some time to look into solar energy, at least to help out for a bit. Since we've already been to the Nether, we can already easily craft up some daylight sensors for solar panels. And yes, this is a new recipe for this new version of Nuclearcraft, and no, I don't like it. Change scares me, which means it scares you too. But still, we managed to get some more quartz from the Nether, avoid another meteorite shower, and grab some cobble. The manufactory can turn cobble into sand. We'll worry about all that later. For now, let's go to bed. Sure enough, the next day, we can get started on our solar panels. We do this by getting a ton of wooden slabs and some copper solenoids. Throw a bit of these heavy plates in here too, and a dash of glass panels. Finally, a little bit of lapis, and soon we have our very first solar panels. And I'm really sending this one. We continue to make even more solar panels. Sadly though, we do run out of copper out of all things. But we can set these down and generate a little power in the meantime. We start to make some cables to run the power back to our machines. And of course, I'm going to upgrade them. Because, let's face it, having basic little cables running around your base on day 50 plus, that's soft boy stuff. So soon, we get our elite cables all set out. We start to get our first solar panels on them. Hopefully, we'll get a little extra power to cook up our calorite. Just before we do that, this is where our tough alloy comes in. It's always much more efficient to upgrade your solar panels if you can. In order to do that, you will need a little bit of tough alloy. And since we do have a little bit of tough alloy, we can. Oh god, or at least I thought we could. Where's all my lead? Ooh, sorry guys. Looks like my dad might have got into my lead supply. You know how boomers are. We finally do manage to pull it all together and get one advanced solar panel. We throw it and the basic ones all on the power grid, but we are waiting for more copper and lead in order to upgrade these basic boys. Finally, we do manage to get a second advanced panel, just as the night starts. Yeah, great timing. With no solar power at night, obviously, our industry is choking and dying. We have no choice but to head out and do a little bit of mining. The good news is we find plenty of copper, like right here by my base. The bad news is, in order to find that lead, we still have quite a lot of traveling to do. I head out into the redwood forest, and I start making my brand new mine. Soon, I do see a little bit of lead, but I still can't quite figure out how to mine this lead. I do, however, kind of have a cool idea here. I use this creeper and bait him closer to the ore. When he blows up, I do manage to get like a little bit of it. Gotta be honest with you though, this is probably not a practical long-term solution. For whatever reason, when I mine this particular type of lead, the nuclear bombs lead, it doesn't work. However, I do have one other idea. I head up to the surface and try to pull it off. I start to throw down some torches, leave a little breadcrumb so that I can find my way back to this mine as I start my way back home. I empty my pockets, making more room for some treats. But more importantly, I grab a vanilla diamond pickaxe. Now, at the very start of day 53, I head right back out. Over the fields, through the woods, in through the tall, deep grass, till I find Grandma's house. No, we're not doing that. We're just looking for a hole. Alright, still good. And what's even better, it turns out Big Captain's brain does it again, because the diamond vanilla pick manages to get this lead out of the ore. I'm honestly not sure that fortune actually worked here. It kind of looks like it didn't, but whatever. Something here is better than like literally nothing. So I stay down here, going back to all the lead that I missed, and soon I start to collect a pretty good amount. Now it's day 54, but since I should be able to get more lead, I think I should still be okay. Assuming nothing too bad happens. Dude, who am I kidding? Giant rocks are falling from the sky. Of course something bad's gonna happen. Still, can't be too upset though. We are getting a ton more lead. including the mechanism's lead, which is still affected by the fortunes, so that's good. Those sounds I'm hearing, coming from the surface, yeah, not so good. It seems like another apocalypse-sized meteor shower is starting up right over my head. I've been mining so long, I have no idea what my base is going to look like when I get back. As I dig my way up, the explosions only get louder. I'm starting to really get worried here. I pop my head up inside of this ravine. Good, right? Lots of protection from all the walls. Nope. The fire shockwave starts to burn me up even when I'm down here. A trusty bucket of water is all that really saves me. So far. Still a lot more danger is coming as I can see a cascade of fiery debris falling down into this ravine. I continue to dig my way up. I pop my head out on the surface. We can see tons of meteors shooting through the sky right above me. But that's nothing compared to how it looks down on the ground. I mean, look at this. In the darkness of the night, the fire spreads everywhere, making this valley look like a war zone. And this is only halfway through. The raining fire has just started. I know I should get home and make sure that my base is okay. But at the same time, I don't want to expose myself out here on the surface. Until a rogue meteorite hits so close to me that it blows me out of my hole, making the decision for me. I have to get going now. I have to carefully take a few steps forward, make sure I don't fall into a crater or get lit on fire. But then I have to look up to make sure I'm also not going to get crushed. This is crazy. It's honestly kind of cool to watch. I mean, don't get me wrong, but if I die on day 54, I will punch my monitor, I swear. But still, this is intense. And sometimes I get blown back from the impact when they land too close. This is one of the most impactful mods I've ever... Oh god, was that another pun? Okay, you know what? After that, maybe I deserve to be taken out by one of these. Well, it kind of looks like that might just happen. It's well into day 56 now, and this event is still going on. I jump through this wall of fire in front of me, and I look up to see that there's a break. Maybe the shower is over. Well, let's not wait around here too long to find out. I keep on running, trying to make it all the way back to my base. A few rogue meteors are still falling all around me, but it's nothing like it used to be. I get back to my home, and I've never been so happy to be under this big steel shield. And even though that was a crazy few minutes there, that could have gone really badly, it didn't. In fact, we come back with tons and tons of lead. Now, we can start our final rocket. And after what we went through yesterday, it seems like we're going to have to hurry. Of course, get the nose cone, the fins, 6 blocks of calorite, that's all easy. What I'm really worried about is, will we have enough desh to make the tanks and the engine? The first 2 gas tanks get turned into steel tanks, and luckily, we do have enough desh for both tanks. In the end, we have 6 desh left. I think that should be enough. Sure enough, we get our desh engine. And we have just 1 piece of desh left to spare. Yeah, I didn't even calculate that. Honestly, I had no idea what I was doing when I was up on the moon. Totally just blind luck there, but I'll take it. Now that we have all the parts that we need, we take one last trip to the NASA workbench. Soon, we have our true tool to our salvation. No, it's not prayer. The Minecraft gods have abandoned us long ago, little Timmy. No. All of our hopes lie in this Tier 4 calorite rocket. And I gotta say, these twin turbo boosters on the side, along with this red and black finish, looking pretty sleek. No more aliens calling me a broke boy. We're gonna be getting tons of space street cred. God, space reminds me of my high school bullies. Anyway, doesn't really matter, because I'm in a rush to get this rocket into space. And by this rocket, I do mean the Tier 3 rocket. Yeah, sorry, I kind of clickbaited you there. We're gonna be taking this old reliable rocket one more time up into space. We aren't gonna go to the asteroid this time. We're not even headed to Mercury either. Instead, we're gonna take a quick trip back to our moon. I noticed that the moon actually has the most ice on it. Venus had none, I don't even think there's any. And Mars wasn't too bad. But still, old reliable Luna is number 1. So even though we ended up not needing any desh, we still needed to take a little bit of time back on the moon to collect the ice shards, because I didn't have enough to fill up the brand new rocket. And this old rocket had just enough juice to take us up and hopefully get us back. To be honest though, I gotta admit, I do kind of love the moon. Mars is probably still top tier planet for me, but the super low gravity of the moon is so much fun to go mining in. As much fun as the moon is, we only can spend about a day or two up here. Our timeline is pretty crunched, and we already have a whole inventory of ice shards. Kinda. Okay, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you guys know what I mean. I can't stay here for too long after all. We still have a tight schedule, and this extra stop here on the moon wasn't really planned for. So we have to get back up into the sky, headed back home with enough fuel to take us anywhere in the solar system that we could possibly want to go. The good news is, as we come falling back to Earth, we actually land where we're supposed to this time, and I can start the nightmarishly long process of turning all these ice shards into cryofuel. While we do that, I get a chance to change into my armor, and I think Buzz was peeping in on my goodies while I was changing. Stop it, Buzz. I already told you, no hanky-panky until after we stop the end of days. Keep that stinger in your pants, mister. For now, let's stay focused on getting just a little more power. Now I need some of the basic panels to make advanced solar panels, and even though we make 2 stacks of this, that might seem like a lot and a waste of lead, I'm going to need these to make our reactor casing, so trust me, in the end, this is not going to be a waste at all. At this point, we can continue to craft up a few more panels until we get a total of 12 advanced solar panels, which is pretty good, but we could do a little bit better. On day 60, we head out to the Nether, but this time it's going to be a really quick trip. We're just here to get some quartz. I gotta say, this version of Nuclearcraft really sucks down your quartz. While I'm here, I also decide to get some glowstone, and back home, I see that we actually have a good amount of cryofuel going. This is still going to take a while, so I do have to keep on refilling with ice shards and sit here for a while babysitting. But with those quartz, but with the quartz? Is quartz already plural? And anyway, it doesn't matter because quartz isn't our problem anymore. It's copper again. We crank out another 2 advanced solar panels and we add them on. Also, we're going to have to craft up our pressurizer. This machine is from old Nuclearcraft, but back then it was pretty useless. In this latest update of Nuclearcraft, however, it is like an essential, super important machine, and it helps us make like a lot of stuff. By day 61, we are still definitely struggling with our power here, which is kind of crazy. It just goes to show you how much nuclear energy can be a true game changer. Sometimes I would say it's like borderline essential. Still though, there's nowhere we're going to be able to build something as big as a reactor if all of our industry is choking like this. We need to craft up another 4 advanced solar panels and set all of them out. I look up into the sky just to make sure that these solar panels are, like underneath the sunlight, make sure they're actually getting power, but they do look okay. Then I have another idea. I'm thinking that one of the reasons our machines might be struggling is that most of our machines in the lab are still connected by basic power cables. I craft the upgraded elite cables and get ready to give my lab a little upgrade here. And while I definitely still think this was a great idea, the execution was, well, I am currently burning up in lava, so yeah, you can see how the execution went. Soon though, I am getting a hang of how we do this here, making sure that I move some lava, and I'm replacing all the cables fast enough to stop any of the lava from getting all over my face. The basic cables definitely probably were a limiting factor to how much power our machines were getting, but what's actually maybe even more important is that these elite cables can store more power inside of them. They can kind of act like a battery. They'll be able to store up the solar panel that we create during the day. All that being said, even if our power situation's looking a little bit better, I am more ready than ever to finally get working on our reactor. So first, we're going to have to start pressing our lead. However, I am stopped dead in my tracks when I see yet another new recipe in this version of Nuclearcraft, because we're going to need electrum for some of our reactor parts. Electrum needs gold and silver, and once again, I haven't found any silver. So let's hope mercury can be the answer once again. In the meantime, I start to dig down below the floor, and I try to make a good spot for our incoming reactor. Sadly, I didn't learn any lessons from Fukushima, as I start to dig out this reactor room and it's already flooding with salt water. But hey, having a little water spill on your head is definitely a lot better than having lava spill on your head. If a meteor were to hit my lab and lava spilled down onto my reactor, we would have ourselves one mega elephant's foot. For the next few days, we're going to be struggling a little bit, digging under the sea, trying to get all this water removed. I do decide to once again use Deep Slate because I absolutely want to make sure that all of my viewers are completely cringed as I build even further down into the sea. I mine up some more Deep Slate because I do love torturing my viewers. By that night, I have a small room almost completely blocked off. Yikes. Ooh. Okay, seriously, that one was a little too close. Now, I am starting to use dirt as much as I can to blot up all the water sources, because the Paxel can slice through dirt like butter. And soon, layer by layer, we finally have some dry space down here to work with. We just have to clean out a few of the last blocks, and of course get a better floor set out here. Deep Slate, of course. And while this definitely doesn't look like the most beautiful build I've ever made, you guys have probably already figured out why I'm doing this. The idea here is if I build this reactor underneath this Deep Slate floor, it'll also have a cover of the steel shielding up top. At the time, I'm thinking that this combination means that we should be able to withstand 2 direct impacts in the exact same spot, before I have to actually start to repair. This base hasn't been really hit by a direct impact, at least not a big impact, so I definitely am still playing it super safe. At least this is the idea. I set down all the reactor casing that I've crafted up so far, and it's, wow, not even close, yikes. Very clearly we still have quite a lot of work to do if we want to finish this whole reactor. The big problem, of course, is still lead. I guess it makes sense. If you're building a giant reactor, you want as much shielding as you can possibly get from all those rads, but still makes the reactor even more expensive than it used to be. For now, I'm making a rock crusher. The rock crusher turns vanilla rocks like granite and andesite into materials that we're going to need for our reactor. For example, let's start to crush up some diorite. I'm also going to be making the reactor walls out of glass, but yeah, I immediately stop. To be honest with you guys, when I'm making these videos, I hate building these multi-block items like reactors in disjointed segments. I want to be able to make all of this all at once so it's a lot easier for you guys to watch. So for now, as ridiculous as this reactor looks, I'm going to be putting this half-baked fiasco on the back burners for just a second. We add some andesite to the crusher this time, and we take a nap right in the heart of our open reactor. A disclaimer, do this, it's really fun. Seriously kids, go jump in an open reactor, you'll love it. At the start of day 65, I see that we do have a ton of cryofuel. We should be able to travel wherever we want for the rest of these 100 days. I also start to cook up beryllium that came out of all that andesite. Beryllium and zirconium from the diorite are the key blocks for the moderators and the fuel cells that will go inside of our reactor. So making sure that we're always farming up and crushing up these rocks is always a good idea. Speaking of blocks, the main block that you fill up a reactor with is heat sinks. Oh god, what is this? Okay. So it turns out that our brand new, super beloved, super awesome, cool version of Nuclearcraft has completely changed the recipe to make heat sinks. Now, in order to make these, we need thermoconducting material. Honestly, if you think about it, that is kind of cool. Like, that does make sense for a heat sink to have. But number one, it makes the fission reactor, which used to be the most basic type of reactor in Nuclearcraft, way more expensive. It's now almost as bad as like a molten salt reactor. And 2, I was not prepared for this. I did not plan to leave enough time to make this. This is a super expensive reactor, and we have to make a turbine, and we have to process all the waste that we then have to craft into a nuclear bomb. This throws our timeline and our schedule into chaos. It makes the last third of this challenge a total nightmare if I'm being honest. First, we crush up some diamonds. We add that to graphite to make hard carbon. And then we have to add tough alloy to this to make extreme alloy. Now we're going to have to add boron arsenide, starting with 2 melters. But of course, you guys already know, we can't even make these melters because we've run out of lead. So now I have one last hope. I have to rush into space, which is something I never thought I'd say. But on the bright side here, we might actually get a chance to test out our brand new Tier 4 rocket as we get it loaded with cryofuel, and for the first time ever, we get a test launch going. On the dim side, I have no idea if I'll even find lead out here in the solar system. But just like Elon Musk once again, I'm hoping that rockets will solve all of my problems, and I start this bad boy up. And hey, if nothing else, I gotta say, this rocket is awesome. watching this beauty rip into the sky, it's almost worth this entire playthrough right here. Man, I love Ad Astra. Kinda. I mean, I still don't want to, die for no reason, so let's at least try to make this launch somewhat worth it. Speaking of dying, we start to fall towards our last and, sadly, most hostile planet. Mercury is definitely giving the Nether a run for its money, because right away, as I land, I see that the whole surface is covered in pools of lava. However, it's not all bad. The planet does have some iron, even though I immediately dropped the first piece of iron in lava. Not a good sign. And, sure enough, exactly what we needed, a little bit of lead here too. And it's right on the surface. So you're probably thinking exactly what I was thinking. I've already found exactly what I'm looking for, right here on the surface. Once I go down and start mining, Captain's probably going to find a ton of loot on this crazy world. And that does make sense, right? Like, the more challenging the planet, the better the loot should be. Right? Well, as I start to head deeper and deeper into the core of Mercury, I find some iron and a little bit of lead, yes, but it's mostly just like hazardous pools of lava and hostile terrain everywhere. Most of the world down here is just this huge basalt lava chambers. And yeah, I'm gonna say it, it is cool to look at, and it's a really sick atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, this might be one of the coolest looking undergrounds in any planet in Ad Astra. But I cannot deny that the loot down here is horrible. It's much worse than Venus or Mars. In fact, the loot here is actually worse than it would be on Earth. Just the vanilla overworld has better stuff than this. Now, there are some little slivers of silver, which is definitely a big deal, don't get me wrong. We do need this for our reactor, but honestly, this planet is more fun exploration, not really practical and very good for getting loot. So, to avoid the pain and the danger of trying to mine up and ending up inside of a lava pool, I find an opening in the crust, and I set my rocket down here inside the lava chamber. It's a big time saver. It helps us get out of here, and maybe even help us will burn up like a marshmallow. But hey, it does look pretty cool. I mean, just check this view out. Our hero rises from literal ashes to shoot into the glory of space. Yeah, or maybe I'm just coping for how much time we wasted on this planet. Either way, I get back to Earth and our base. Soon enough, we finally have everything we need to start to make some real progress on our reactor. I start to load up the smelters, and of course, another blast of meteors starts to rain down on us, like always. I'm sure this is fine though. These things always miss us, right? Oh, that one's kind of shooting straight for us. I'm sure it's going to veer away at the last second though. Right? I get thrown halfway across the map. To be honest with you, the only reason I didn't splatter on impact is because I landed in some water. It's a good thing I switched to my refined armor, or this playthrough would have been over right there. I crawl my way back into the base, which is now totally on fire. The area right next to my chests have a huge crater blown in them. The side of my lake is now pouring down into the ravine. And the bees they're looking a little bit toasty down here. After making sure that all of my stuff is no longer burning, I try my best to help them out as well. And from now on, I make sure that I'm going to spend as much time as possible underneath this steel shield. Which means now, we should probably get back to making our melters. Finally, we do have enough lead, and we can make 2 of them. Again, there's something like ironic here, right? We went to the lava planet Mercury, and our whole base is on fire, and we're crafting up melters. Anyway, forgive my weird brain connections there. What's more important is now we can start to melt some boron, and that's good. I definitely think we have enough of this. And also some arsenic, which is a byproduct of crushing diorite. Now we craft up a chemical reactor, which we can add on top of the 2 melters. And once we get some power cables hooked up to them, we can start making some boron aconite. Now we just need 1 more machine. Okay, not really. We need to make machines until the day we die, but we have 1 more machine before we can get our thermoconducting materials. We add an ingot former, and yes, I am going to pronounce it that way. This goes on top where we connect a pipe so we can start to pump the boron arsenite into here, where it will cool into a gem. Now, we add this gem to the extreme alloy in the alloy furnace, which is another machine that we would have to craft, but we already have enough, so we should be good. Speaking of good, I have to admit, it does feel pretty good to actually hold one of these thermoconducting ingots in our hands. We put this in the pressurizer, and soon we can finally craft up our very first heatsink. Yeah, you heard me, just one. Now I know you little Nuclearcraft nutjobs are begging for some mega reactor, but to be honest with you, with this new super expensive recipe here to make heatsinks, I'm gonna have to scale down my plans for a reactor massively. If we want any hope of starting this reactor up in time and getting our plutonium, we're gonna need a much smaller reactor running much faster. For now, let's make some speed upgrades to help us get these heatsink productions going a little bit faster. We're gonna need it. This new version of Nuclearcraft also requires you to crush all the materials before you can make them in a heatsink, which means the process is definitely slowed down a little bit here too. But the speed upgrades will directly boost this process. Also, let's be honest, I'm just impatient too, so you guys know. Okay, now we do have a decent start here. We have 6 lapis sinks. We have 4 of the actual reactor cells where the fuel will go, and some beryllium and graphite blocks too. But there is still a long, long way to go. Day 69. Do you guys remember when 69 used to bring us joy? Well, it still does for me. I'm a 14-year-old boy at heart forever. Sadly, this next part does bring me absolutely no joy. We can no longer just make water into heat sinks with a bucket like we used to. In fact, we have to craft up a fluid infuser. And the bucket of water doesn't even work here either. We need to run pipes of water from my lake up to the fluid infuser. But finally, we do get our 2 water heat sinks. And if you know anything about Nuclearcraft, that means that copper heat sinks are right up next. We get 4 of those. And we're also going to get 4 iron heat sinks, which will pair nicely with our 4 lead heat sinks. I gotta say, now that we're actually making the internal parts of a reactor, feels pretty good to be back to classic Nuclearcraft. You know, kinda classic. One thing that doesn't feel very good is losing power in the rain. I mean, yes, this is obviously more realistic. Solar panels can't work with no sun, but you guys guessed it. This is actually new to the update too. Solar panels used to work in the rain. So these dead machines do slow us down, but we still managed to crank out our 2 gold heat sinks and our 1 lithium as well. Sadly, however, the big pink elephant's foot in the room is still, all this doesn't matter if we don't get our outer casing for the reactor built first. This means, once again, we head out to get even more lead. Now I'm going to level with you guys. This version of Nuclearcraft is not really working with the mod pack very well at all. So do not go asking for the mod pack in the comments like you always do. Just like most of the mod packs that I play, this one does not work. Like seriously, this is actually genuinely busted. Because of that, these long, massive trips to find any lead are like way, way longer than they should be. To be honest with you though, I'm just thankful that we're finding any lead at all. I mean, that's better than what happened with like the boron or the lithium, I guess. The real problem is that by spending so much time down here looking for lead, that means I've been away from my base and my protection for a super long time. So of course, when those meteor showers do hit, I'm almost always like 1,000 blocks away from my home. You know, kind of like this meteor shower right here. So now I have to run all the way back home to make sure that my house isn't on fire. This means that whenever I go mining lead, every few days, my life becomes a Michael Bay movie, with raining destruction and me always being in the worst spot imaginable. I'm out here like literally stuck in a field of fire, with a huge impact shockwave rolling over me and lighting me on fire too. Yeah, and no bucket of water this time. I just have to run around hoping I don't lose too much health. And of course, hoping I don't get smashed. Because this time, if I were to get thrown up in the air, I don't have an ocean to cushion my fall. Speaking of ocean, I do see some water right near this redwood forest, so of course I run towards it. Try not to get hit by any of these close calls at the same time though. The phantoms right here are kind of weirdly the least of my problems. I'm way more worried about the background here. I mean, look at the whole world. I mean, literally, like every block is on fire. I then stumble and fall into this crater, but luckily I managed to get my way out pretty quickly and into some water. I pause right here where I am safe, ish, at least from the fire. And while I'm here, I get a chance to see that a lot of these meteors are like a lot bigger than they were in the first few days. It almost seems like as the days go by, the meteors are getting bigger and bigger. Just then, I think I see a break in the shower, so I make a run for it. I stay super close to the water the whole time because I am not trying to catch on fire out in the open. And sure enough, by the very beginning of day 73, I'm finally within sight of my home. The meteors have stopped, for now, and I pack my enricher with lead, hoping that maybe this will be enough this time. I cannot stress just how much more lead this new version of Nuclearcraft needs. It is kind of heartbreaking, honestly, but I guess it is a little more realistic. Either way, we do get enough reactor casing to finally fill out the bottom and to start to build our way up. Now, if it isn't already super obvious by how tiny this little room is, the reactor here is going to be a short one. In fact, this is only going to be a single layer reactor. This is to cut costs as much as possible. Like I said, we're going full Soviet Union on this one. We then add 4 reactor ports, which do work way differently than they would in old Nuclearcraft. But I'll get there when I get there. Oh boy, will I get there. For now, let's just get our 4 cells down just like this. Next up, we have the 6 lapis, which we lay out in a mirrored setup kind of like this. The moderators connecting these 2 cells will be 2 beryllium blocks with a graphite block in the middle of them, and then in the spots that are touching the cell where we didn't put the lapis, we add our water, and then out in the corners of the water, we add the copper. Now we can set our iron heat sinks so that they're touching the beryllium moderators, and this is where we'll put all 4 of them. Then on the outside from those, we'll put our 4 lead. We can start to put our gold in between the 2 iron, and finally place our lithium in between the lead. Now, you're probably thinking, just 1 lithium? Yeah. Believe it or not, I had this whole thing calculated and planned out so that we would be sync perfect. I didn't need any more cooling. So you can guess my surprise when the next part happens. But don't worry about any of that, that's still to come. We have way bigger problems to deal with first. Now, I have to craft up a whole new machine called an assembler. This thing makes components like computer circuits, which are needed for parts in the reactor. We crush up some emeralds so that we can first make an electric blend. Yes, I know, that does definitely sound like an energy drink. I'm thirsty too. But sadly, it's just another ingredient to make the computer chip, which we add along with electrum, thanks to our trip to Mercury, combine that in the assembler to finally get the computer chips. Now, we can finally craft up our fission reactor controller. So now that we're at least getting pretty close to our reactor being finished, it'd be a pretty good idea to start to get some uranium fuel enriched. To do this properly and somewhat safely, we should have some rad protection, so we start to craft up radiation shielding that we should be able to wear. Now, we have to travel all over the world to get enough leather. So, I am sorry, Mumus. Some of you may have to die, but it is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. You will be missed. Who am I kidding? I've seen all you monsters play Minecraft. You kill these guys and don't even give a blink. You won't miss them. But what does make slaughtering these cows a little bit easier is the fact that we won't have to kill too many of them. We can actually use zombie rotten flesh to make leather. At least a few of these poor cows will be spared. But again, do you even care? Do you care about these sad poor mumus, you horrible, horrible monsters? Well, I do. I even make sure to feed the cows so that they can make babies so that we can keep the cow population up. I think this is good. I think this is kind of kind-hearted, right? I mean, the cows don't go extinct, but man, so many orphans. Well, it looks like nature didn't love the calling of all those animals too much, because just as I reach this village, another meteor shower starts to pour down on us. Yeah, oh god, this could get ugly. Pretty sure that first one there is an alien cocoon, so goodbye poor villagers. Now it's a race for me to see if I can loot as much as I possibly can before this entire village is wiped off the map. Whoa, okay. By the looks of it, we are losing this race. This little house right here has had one of its sides completely blown open. Oof. That one's not even the real threat. I see one of the big ones come crashing right down, and another massive fire shockwave spreads towards us. I have to jump into the water in the farms to save myself. Man, being stuck in the water here just to survive, I gotta say I feel so powerless. What are you supposed to do to stop this? This next rock scores a direct hit right on top of this house. The roofs of both these poor huts are completely wiped out. And all of this, honestly, is still just the calm before the real storm hits. I'm now hiding in this crater while bigger and bigger rocks come falling down. These things are getting real close. Like seriously, it seems like almost all of them are right on top of me. One of them blows me back and I fall to the other side of the crater. But it turns out that was a good thing, because the next one crashes down right where I was. And while I might be currently surviving, it kind of looks like my computer isn't. Too many breaking blocks and fire for the old girl. I think I'm down to like, what, 10 frames here? So I do run down the hill and start to hide in this lake. And the second I can, I immediately start running back home. I mean, literally, this thing like came out of nowhere. I swear I didn't hear this. It got like a legitimate scream out of me, no lie. So even though now I'm home, I can tell that I am not safe. These meteors are 100% getting bigger, and more of them are coming in each shower now. Definitely thinking that I'm going to have to rush my plans as much as I can. The first part of those plans are, yeah, sadly, we still have to go out another night and get even more cows. The idea here is that we're trying to get a full leather set. And I know that sounds weird, like, you got netherite gear, why are you going backwards? But the thing is, we need all this leather and a little bit of yellow dye for our next safety measure, our hazmat suit. At least this version of Nuclearcraft made this item much easier to make. It only takes light shielding. It does, however, take a lot of light shielding, but still, I'd say this is pretty easy. Soon, after crushing up even more lead, graphite, and iron, we get enough shielding to make our first set of hazmat gear. This should keep us safe for our standard uranium and even plutonium usage, you know, assuming there aren't any horrible accidents. Actually, you know what? Forget I said anything. Let's not jinx it. For now, we can get our isotope separator, which is how you get uranium ready to be made into fuel. Soon, we throw some uranium dust in, and now we're already getting our 235 and 238. Another weird change about this version is that we don't have to make primers for our reactors. So in a weird way, it's kind of like OG Nuclearcraft, not like Overhaul, right? Not exactly, because we can still make the Overhaul style fuels like the zircoli infused HEU. We just have to cook up some of that zircoli, which is made from zirconium and tin. Then, once we get the zircoli dust, we can add it into a melter, connect that melter into a fluid infuser, and then we just have to put some uranium 235 in here, and we start making our infused fuels. Also, we're getting some more good progress here, because we finally have enough casing to finish up all the walls. Okay, yes, I know it's only one block tall, but still, it's good progress. Now, we just have to seal off the top. So we do have to work all day, but soon enough, we have enough glass casing to finish up the top of the reactor, which is a big step. Don't get me wrong, but we still need to get a turbine made. And when I was doing this, I had no idea what new challenges I was going to face. No matter what was coming up next, on day 79, we were going to need a way to store up all the power from this reactor. This is where mechanism cubes are hands down the best answer. And because this reactor will be using highly enriched fuels, we go straight into the ultimate cubes. Now, to match that, we also make sure to craft up the ultimate power cables to move energy around. And I decided to go even a little bit further that night. We get an additional 2 cubes to make a total of 3. I then stack these right on top of the port and run a cable all the way to the power grid. Now, you're probably already thinking, wait, what? Where's the turbine? Well, at this time, I was starting to realize that this was looking a lot more like old school Nuclearcraft, where we didn't need a turbine. And, to my credit, I was kind of right. Also, I was extremely wrong too. See, as I craft up our first piece of HEU 235ZA fuel and get it ready to go into our reactor, I quickly and very harshly learn a few key things. Number 1, this is not like old school Nuclearcraft. This heat bar should definitely not be going up like this. It should never be going up like this, because if it peaks, well, let's just say we won't have to worry about the asteroid killing us. I seriously ran up the stairs trying to get away from this reactor because I actually thought it was going to blow up. That's how confused I was right now. Sure enough, I do see that these cubes are starting to get a little bit of power, but I also see that when I turn the reactor off, it just doesn't switch off. It has to slowly cool down. It's almost like the control rods are taking time to be lowered into the reactor and slow the criticality down. Running this reactor is like the single most dangerous and irresponsible thing that I can be doing right now. It's busted. Like straight up, this reactor is broken. I have like a third-party app where I can calculate how to build reactors, and it just simply does not jive with this new version of Nuclearcraft. I am 100% running blind when it comes to this reactor. However, I'm starting to think I might know what the problem is. I designed this reactor to create steam and to be used in conjunction with a turbine. Now the bad news is that means we have a whole lot more work to do as I start to set out making these 3 pumps to get water into our reactor. The good news is we did this test on day 79, so we still have about 20 days to relearn all of Nuclearcraft and fix this busted reactor. Which means step 1, which is carefully spinning up and down the reactor until we use up this entire pellet and can get it out of the reactor. Now that the reactor is empty and isn't dangerous, well, isn't as dangerous, now we have water going into this reactor, and we make a pipe coming out the top of the reactor. All I need now is a decent little turbine. To make this turbine, just like overhaul Nuclearcraft, we have to get granite inside the rock crusher. This makes rhodochrosite, which can be cooked down into manganese. Although, for some weird reason here, we do have to use a vanilla blast furnace to do this. I guess our industrial smelter just isn't good enough, but whatever. This mod is already crazy enough, so who really cares anymore? After getting these green manganese oxide bars cooked up, we can cook them up again in the blast furnace to make these light blue manganese bars. Perfect. Well, kind of perfect. We still aren't even close to being done, because I guess we have to combine these manganese with carbon. Until I see this. That is not in OG Nuclearcraft. It's not even in overhaul Nuclearcraft. Before, you could just combine this manganese dust with graphite dust, which by the way is carbon, and you could do this in an alloy furnace. Now, we have to go through some weird, crazy process where we have to extract carbon from a centrifuge that we fill up with carbon dioxide, which we get from a chemical reactor. You see how this is kind of a headache? To be honest though, this weirdly kind of has parallels that are the same as making Radaway. Luckily, we've already grown some sugar just in case we had to do that, and we can throw it into our first melter. Then, we piped the melted sugar into our chemical reactor, which all we have to do is hook this up with some water. If you wanted Radaway, you would take the ethanol made in this chemical reactor and infuse it with some glowing mushrooms. But we will not be doing that, not right now. Instead, we're going to want the carbon dioxide, which we'll pipe into a centrifuge, which we craft up and add it right up top. Soon, this is splitting out the carbon, which is great. I mean, as great as this whole process possibly can be. Because now, 2 days later, we have another fluid infuser and finally combine that carbon with the manganese, neither of which are fluids, by the way, but you still can't even combine these. They have to be crushed down into powders, which is also new to this version too. I don't know, man, just make it stop, please. Whatever, doesn't matter, because either way, we finally have our carbon manganese blend, which means we still aren't done. We take this blend, add it to an alloy furnace again with 15 iron. Buzz, old friend, I swear you're the only thing keeping me going at this point. We finally get our very first piece of HSLA steel. Like I said, this HSLA making process does take a long time. But the good news is, when it's done, it actually makes us 16 bars. So at least there's a little upside there. After pressing all these bars into plates and adding a chassis, we can make this into our very first turbine casing. Only 4, but I guess that is progress. And speaking of progress, by that night, we finally get the very beginning of the turbine started as we're setting out the floor, which I think should be about 5 by 7. Okay, so I can finally stop ripping out all my hair, right? We're finally getting some work done here, right? No, because you know what happened? We run out of lead. Again. Again, we're out of lead. It's now day 83. We have less than 17 days, and we are back down in the mines for another massive lead run. Now, honestly, the good news is, I now know how to get both types of lead this time. So yeah, I guess there's some character growth there, maybe? The bad news is, I know just how much lead I'm going to need to finish up this turbine, and it's a lot. So I'm going to need to stay down here for a few days. I'm doing almost a total of 3 days, and I get all the way into the middle of day 85 when I come back to the surface. But here's the real kicker, it's still not enough. I have to head back down and keep on doing more mining. While I'm down here, I do decide it's time to get a little more uranium. Hoarding up too much uranium from like day one might potentially start to add up on the rads. It's not too dangerous, honestly, but I'd much rather microwave myself from the inside out than run out of fuel and have to go mining for more of this stuff. Finally, I pop my head up above the ground into a beautiful winter wonderland. But unfortunately, I can't stick around to enjoy it for too much, because it's already day 87. This is getting way too close. I still have to build the entire turbine, run the reactor for long enough to make all the nuclear waste, reprocess that waste, then manufacture the bomb, all in 13 days. And by the time I actually get back to my base, it's already nighttime, so even less than that, honestly. I fill up my enricher with as much lead as I can, and I get back to work right away. Once again, I'm working with the assembler. We have to make some more computer chips because we need those to make the turbine controller as well. Oh, and of course, I'm also making sure that I don't get smashed by the ever-increasing number of meteors coming down. This time, this one was way too close. In fact, it might even be the worst possible spot to have hit. Now, the shield didn't stop it, but it was close enough to completely ignite the entire beehive tree. I'm going to tell you guys the truth right here. When I saw this beehive on fire like this, I had felt more panicked here than any other moment in the 100 days by far. I genuinely would have rage quit on day 89 without these buzzy little boys, I swear. I will do whatever it takes to save these little guys, whatever sacrifice. Take my YouTube channel. Take one of my viewers. They're not helping. Either way, we do manage to finally save these little angels. Thank God they're safe. Oh, by the way, I was totally kidding about sacrificing you guys just to save some pixels in a game. We're good, right? Well, it turns out I'm not good, because another close call smashes directly into my library and blasts me out into the water again. I get back to my library to see that there is literally a piece of iron sitting in the middle of it. And there's a piece of the shield that has been punched out, proving that this shield is not completely bulletproof. It can be destroyed. Oh, also, I'm okay. Thanks for asking, guys. Or at least I think I'm okay. To be honest with you, constantly trying to run away from these meteors and these showers getting bigger and bigger, it's really slowed down my turbine production here. I also don't like this. A direct hit right into the center of my base. Fire shoots all around me, and this skyrock literally lands right next to my machines. And sure enough, another hole has been punched in my protection. Bit by bit, my protection is starting to fail as the asteroid gets closer and closer. I'm trying to rush the turbine as fast as I can. Yeah, check this out. My game mysteriously crashed, like right when I was trying to click on the port of our turbine. That's not a good sign. Unfortunately, it was just the very tip of a much bigger problem that I was going to discover. For now, though, I was still totally unaware of what that meant. As I finished the turbine, I was actually thinking I dodged a bullet right there. I start to run some ultimate pipes to get the steam into the turbine, then some cables to pull the power into these cubes. Now, on day 92, I put on my hazmat suit, because we should barely just have enough time to get all of our plutonium. However, I still decide to play it safe. I get some upgrades for my pumps. I want to make sure the reactor does not burn off all the water. By that night, we spin her up again, and no good. The reactor is now making 4,500 heat more than it should. I think this might have even got worse. What's going on here? The good news is, however, we are technically making some steam, which is moving up the pipes, and that's where we find the bad news. Yep, the game crashes once again. This turbine port in this new version of Nuclearcraft just doesn't have all the bugs worked out yet. The mod just simply isn't working, which means, yes, that's right, we've wasted precious time trying to get this broken reactor and this broken turbine to work. Also, this is why I was kind of rushing through the process and not really explaining how to build the turbine. Normally I always do that, but now, like, what would be the point? And although it is looking kind of grim at this point, I did have one more desperate idea. Maybe the turbine from Mechanism would still work. At the very start of day 93, with only 7 days left, we set down the casing in the frame of what the turbine will be and start to fill it in with reactor glass. Even get all the vents in place. We get the turbine rotor down and the rotary complex on top of the shaft. On day 94, we get all the pressure dispersers around the complex, and we make coils that will go on top of that, with vents to go at the very, very top of the reactor. By that night, we get all the blades in place, and we get the ports everywhere they need to be. We should be able to pump steam into this port. Should be able to. But, yeah, there's a reason I was rushing making this turbine as well. Turns out, even though I try to do a couple little tricks and rebuild the turbine, get rid of the pipe, put it back, it just simply doesn't work. This turbine will not work with the Nuclearcraft reactors. I even try one last little trick. Normally you use tubes to run steam from a mechanism reactor to its turbine, so we'll try that. The good news is the tube does connect to the turbine. The bad news is it doesn't connect to the reactor, and for some reason, steam is not being drawn out of it. No matter how much steam I try to make, it's not going into the tube, and it won't go into the turbine. Time is up. I just simply cannot waste any more time tinkering with this and trying to get it to work. This means we have to go back to just old school day one Nuclearcraft without a turbine. Which means, yes, I have to sit here and babysit the turbine, carefully making sure it doesn't overheat and we don't blow up. So, you know, totally safe, totally fine. With only 5 days left, I'm starting to think this might not work. I need a new plan. I need something better than this. So, at the start of day 96, I get an idea. I decide that I can cool down the reactor, which will allow me to run it a little bit longer and burn the fuel quicker if I get some more heat sinks. This means we're replacing 2 of the lapis heat sinks with water heat sinks and adding 4 more copper heat sinks. To my credit, yes, this does help. It does bring the temperature of the reactor down, but it is still way too hot, and I just have to turn it on and off again. Since this did work, it means I do have one more desperate play left in my book. And yes, it does involve getting into the rocket. Every problem in this mod pack, let's be honest, it's solved by getting in a rocket. You guys wanted Ad Astra after all, so we're definitely going to get some. A quick trip back to Venus should do the trick. And yes, I mean super quick. I just need to be here long enough to find 1 vein of lithium and bring it back home. And to be honest with you, this wasn't quick enough. This is already using up too much time. We get back into the rocket that night, shooting back up into the sky, getting to Earth ASAP. God, can't this thing go any faster? Back on Earth, we throw the lithium into the smelter, and soon we make our last lithium heatsink. The lithium heatsink is a pretty good one, and I'm hoping it'll really help cool us down. However, to be totally honest with you, this heatsink, it's only a small part of my new plan. See, now I'm starting to make more fuel, but this time we're not going to make HEU fuel. It won't even be infused with zircoli. Both of these things make the fuel more potent. You can make more RF, but also you produce much more heat. And right now we just can't handle that. And sure enough, it turns out my genius does shine through again. The new LEU 235 stays about 800 heat per tick below the melting threshold, which means we can burn it nonstop. No more babysitting required. Yeah, that's right. I'm still the best. You know, don't pay attention to those other multiple mess-ups that almost certainly made us run out of time. No. That was all just to build the drama, obviously. Let's focus more on the fact that we now have our very first piece of depleted fuel into the fuel reprocessor. And with this, we can get nothing. Yeah. In this version, you have to smelt out the zircoli before you can put the fuel into the reprocessor. Once again, that is completely different from the overhaul version. Whatever, I don't care. Quickly figure out what to do here, and finally, we have our first piece of plutonium-238, the main fissile fuel in a thermonuclear bomb, which means we're doing it. We're doing it on day 97. Yeah, with only 3 days left, we need to get a total of 9 of these things. Oof. The good news is, the reactor is now permanently going, and pretty quickly, it's starting to make a bunch of fuel. By that night, we managed to get our 9 plutonium, which we can combine into our pellet of plutonium-239, the core of a 5-ton nuclear bomb. But let's be real here, guys. We all know that we're not going to be able to blow up an entire asteroid with a conservative nuclear bomb like this. We're going to need the biggest bomb that mankind can possibly craft up, which means we're going to need another 18 pieces of plutonium. What? You guys are surprised? Do you think that saving the world was going to come easy? Oh dear naive viewers, nothing about Nuclearcraft is easy. The problem here is we might be able to make the nuclear bomb. Our timeline is so tight though, I don't know how I'm going to be able to plant it and get back home. At this point, we might need a new plan. So I do have one more slightly desperate idea. I make more highly enriched fuel. Now this fuel doesn't have the zircoli, so it should be cooler. Kind of. It still is about 3,000 heat too hot. But we can now burn it for a little bit longer. With a little bit extra heat means that this will burn faster than the lowly enriched fuel. If I sit here and carefully babysit the reactor. By the middle of day 98, we now have our 10-ton nuclear warhead. We just have to crank out a little more plutonium just to be safe. But still, we might be too late. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. I have to sit down here carefully redlining my reactor, still trying to get the new fuel to as close as a meltdown as we can get without actually starting one. I keep on doing this all the way into day 99. Now we really might have a problem. The dangerous way we keep overclocking our reactor has helped me out, as now we have 6 pieces of plutonium. That's good. What's bad is it's official. We don't have enough time to fly up to the asteroid, plant the bomb, and get back to Earth. The final and most powerful shower has begun. This is the big one. It's heading towards us right now. This is just gonna have to work. Now we're only a couple minutes from impact, and the bomb isn't even done. I don't have a plan here. I don't know what else I'm gonna do. Then this happens. Nope, this isn't any fun anymore. This flying monster from space just killed Buzz. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what sacrifice I have to make or what that vision in that cookie told me. I'm taking this thing down, even if I have to go with it. As all these flaming balls of death roar all around me, the beast is trying to stop me from getting our final bomb. But we have our 9th piece of plutonium, and now we have a 20-ton thermonuclear bomb. Let's do this. And yes, you saw that right. I grabbed a lever and some redstone. Can't talk about that now. We get into our rocket and we have to go. We can't even wait for the meteor shower to clear up. We head straight up into the falling asteroids. I jump out of the rocket mid-countdown and I grab the fuel because maybe I can get back to Earth. In the last few seconds, as we're heading up, an alien cocoon slams into my lab and completely destroys and infects it. Game over. There's no going back now. We either get this bomb into the asteroid or we die. We start to fall down to the surface of this cold, frozen beast. And already, before I even exit the shuttle, we get hit with a problem. The rocket sinks deep into a snow pit, and I have to dig my way out. Grab the rocket and start to head back to the surface. I have to run towards the deepest ravine that I can. I have to get this bomb as deep as possible. I don't have any time to mine down myself. I have to be careful and make sure that I don't fall into any more snow. We gotta go. We only have seconds until the day is over and the impact happens. The sun is setting, and this is the moment. And guys, I have one last surprise that I've been holding back from you. There's one final part of my plan that I didn't tell you. Unfortunately, this bomb does not have a remote detonator. I have to use this redstone lever and blow the bomb up by hand. That's right, no explosion from orbit, no way home. The lever arms the warhead and it starts the rocket up at the same time. I now have 10 seconds to launch. I then, by hand, activate the nuke with the last few seconds, then jump into my rocket as its countdown starts. The ship starts to take off, and we start to get a little ways away. But at the end, the nuke goes off. But all along, I knew that this was part of the job.